Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our epic reread of A Feast for Crows, Cersei 6. Let's raise our glass in honor of the Queen Regent. As always, we always forget to mention that, but as always, this video is spoiler all. And I just thought I would say it this time in the intro. So, yesterday, I was listening to an early Patreon access of Davos Fingers episode 57, and they were talking about the characters they love to hate. And Cersei is exactly that for me. I'd say she's my third favorite POV, partly because of all of the central action going on in King's Landing that we get to witness, but mostly because it is, for me, utterly fascinating to experience her descent into madness from her own delusional perspective. And that's why I chose her. But before I start an epic rant about her, I'll let my co-hosts introduce themselves, and starting with the beautiful Eliana.
Hi, it's Anne's birthday, and I'm here to celebrate it by reading Cersei 6. I'm Eliana. You might know me as Glass Table Girl on Reddit or Maester Monthly. Maybe you know my Twitter handle. I'm not gonna say it aloud. I have a crown.
It's a very beautiful crown. I did put the Maester's Monthly YouTube video link in the everybody's link. For those of you who may not know, so Eliana is a moderator on Reddit, and with a few other moderators, they started recently a really awesome podcast called Maester's Monthly that talks obviously about A Song of Ice and Fire, but also about the way Reddit views it. Am I right?
Yeah, we talk about the perspective of people on Reddit, but one of our goals is just to highlight the cool stuff that people are doing on Reddit, because sometimes you don't always catch it because of the nature of the site, where it's all time-based. So if something isn't on the front page, maybe you missed it. So want to bring more attention to those things.
Yeah, no, also I think it's really cool that you're using another medium to talk about Reddit, because as we've already discussed, we're all part of the Song of Ice and Fire fandom, but then there are all those niches. There's the YouTube, there's the podcast, there's the Reddit, there's the Westeros forums, and we don't really communicate very often, so it's pretty cool. Thank you, Eliana. So, Tinker, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Tinker Jasso. Everyone probably already knows me, and we're here to do Cersei 6. Cersei, I love Cersei chapters during A Feast for Crows, exactly why Sweet said, because she's going crazy and just seeing her inside her head while she just screws up so monumentally chapter after chapter. Part of you is ooh, it's like watching a train wreck. You just see it, it's gonna crash, and you're like, oh my god, but you cannot stop looking. And it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope so. LT.
Hello everyone, and happy birthday, Anne. And let's get this show on the road.
Thank you, Jerry.
Can one become mad when they already descend into madness, when they're already mad to start off with? Anyways.
That's a good question.
Next person.
And, the almost last person, Don Willie.
Valonqar, everybody. It's Don Willie back again. So glad to be here with my people. Happy birthday to you, Anne. My favorite person from France. And, glad to be talking about Cersei and her absolute stupidity. It's funny because, looking back on this chapter, it's kind of broken down into 3 parts, and the 3 parts are all crazy.
Yeah, they are. There will be a lot of Cersei hate in that reread, but we'll try to not just do that. And lastly, you cannot see him, but he's both moderating the chat and also making sure everything runs smoothly, technically speaking, with our new layout that we're talking about, that we're trying that you can see. So big shout out to Don the Krakenweight, who's there with us, just not on screen.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Anne, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm sorry, going back to my notes. So I wanted to start by, I want to start by thanking you all who helped us choose the chapter by voting in our Twitter poll. I knew I wanted to discuss the Cersei chapter, but after rereading all of them, I had a really hard time deciding which one. And, Tinker used the term train wreck, and it's very much that. Much like Ned's chapters in Game of Thrones, they really tend to bleed into one another, so they are so connected to the rest of the plot that it's tough to separate just one. Maybe with the exception of our final chapter in The Dance with Dragons, The Walk of Shame, that really signals the end of the rules. Otherwise, it's really just, it's like a high-speed train wreck. So I want to start by asking you all if you had a favorite Cersei chapter and why. By you all, I mean all of my wonderful co-hosts.
You mean out of all of the chapters? All of the Cersei chapters?
Yeah, I mean, there are only, 12 of them so far?
I guess my favorite, I don't know if that's like too simple an answer, but it's her walk of shame, but not necessarily because of the comeuppance. It's not that, it's just like you finally get to see Cersei develop a little and change in the way that she views the world and herself. After she does the walk, she starts out and she's still like proud, she's this lioness, and then at the end she's like, maybe I'm not as great as I thought, and she like sincerely feels hurt. But then Sir Robert Strong comes along and she's like, I learned nothing. But
exactly, that's what's crazy with that chapter, is that because of the way all those chapters are structured, you're like, oh, okay, that's so major, it will have changed her. And then you have Kevin's chapter and you're like, oh, she has not changed at all.
It's funny, that's my least favorite chapter, exactly because of that. When the walk of shame happens, I'm like, it's just, I don't care, it's Cersei doing that to a woman in that kind of era. It really hurts. But I thought, well, if at least she learned something out of this, I'll be like, at least it'll be worth it. And then she goes to the end and there's bloody nothing. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this chapter. I haven't read it again. And that's what frustrated me about this chapter. The fact that all that humiliation, all that shame of the women, of the stuff, and she learns nothing from that. That's just the opposite. It drives me nuts. But my favorite one is when she burns the Tower of the Hand. There was just something about the description, about how it's burning and how they look into her the eyes, and how she's just like going. It's the first time, I always thought that she was a cruel idiot bitch, and that's the first time when I was reading it, I thought, ooh, she's not just she's like generally going crazy. And I think I really liked it because it kind of like gave me an idea of where it was going to go, and I was like, ooh, this is gonna be good. I want to read this. There was something about that moment that really captured my attention.
My favorite Cersei chapter, well, it's not just one chapter, it's just like, I guess all her chapters. I like the small council meetings and when they're discussing things, but it's got to be, and I don't remember which chapter it is, but when she, when Sir Loras volunteers to take Dragonstone, and she's like, oh, she's so happy about it. And, that was probably my favorite Cersei moment out of all the books.
I think that's Cersei 7. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Never quote me on anything.
I also do like the Walk of Shame chapter, because when she's feeling guilty, she looks in the crowd and she sees people who aren't there. Like she sees Ned and she sees Tyrion, and I know she sees a few other people. I think she might see Tywin. I can't remember, but it's her guilt, seeing those people.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Jerry, Donwally, do you have a favorite Cersei moment, chapter?
Probably my favorite Cersei moment is when she finally gets caught by the High Sparrow. It's like,
That's the
he,
same for me.
yeah, he walks her in, and sees what is it, Ozzy Cattle Black, uh, and she's up to like, oh my god, oh my god, oh god, and she tries to run away, she just gets hemmed up. Um, yeah, so that's probably my favorite moment because all this time she thought she was so clever. Everyone else is so stupid, and she's made all these moves and not realizing that she's painted herself into a corner with very very slow drying paint. And when it all comes crashing down, it's just like not only does she not have anyone there to defend her at all, but she has no one to blame but herself because she put herself into that whole entire situation.
And we're gonna discuss that in this chapter. I got one more moment. Could I talk about one more moment, Anne?
Of course, of course.
Okay, so this is kind of a story and moment at the same time. The first time I read A Feast for Crows, and I can't remember which Cersei chapter this is, but I'm on the bus, and it's the moment where the guy brings a bag full of dwarf heads, and I just was picturing Cersei's face just looking so pissed off when she saw the heads and saw it wasn't Tyrion, and I bust up laughing so hard, and people were staring at me on the bus.
Oh yeah, it's good. I mean, I didn't have that feeling, but it's really good. Like when a chapter really makes you feel things. And yeah, I mean, like Don Willie and Jerry, because yeah, the three chapters I had let people decide was the burning of the tower at the end. This one, Cersei 6, and Cersei 10 when she gets caught by the High Septon, and it's written. I mean, like it's written so well, like a horror story. When you feel like everything closing up on you, and that's also an amazing chapter. So I totally agree. I also really liked all of her like small council chapters, but they were not really suited for reread because there isn't that much to discuss in them because it's really interesting because it lays foundations, but then like things are very quickly resolved in the next chapters from other people. Like there's not really any thread left, not that much to talk about once you finish the book.
I just think there needs to be a memo on that Cersei 10 chapter where that feeling you get when Osney Kettleback rats you out.
Yeah.
So that's my Cersei moment. That's my favorite Cersei moment, right there.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it's not her. It's not Margaery. That's the queen.
Yeah. That is scary, and yeah, and the way is described, like I think because we don't really see that many scenes of torture. Like we hear about torture secondhand, but there, like we see him hanging, and the description of his body really. That's gross. Like that's gonna be like a horrible realization. But we know that Qyburn is doing much worse things. So, are we ready to dive into the meat of the chapter?
Yes.
Okay, so this chapter opens straight in the middle of a conversation between Cersei and Taena Meriwether while they're making their way to the Great Sept. And as always, Cersei is plotting. Like in all of her chapters, pretty much. As Taena talks about the singers that frequent Margaery's court, Cersei only sees it as a sign that she's having an affair, but she fails to see how keeping a lively court is also an important part of a queen's duty. And like rereading that chapter, I realized all of the similarities that there are between Margaery and what we learn from Queen Rhaenys in The World of Ice and Fire. And yeah, basically, I'm not a historian, so I don't really know a lot about the history of queens throughout the ages. But what is like Margaery really acts the way a queen should. Like for instance, there's that quote in The World of Ice and Fire that is, she was likewise a patron to singers and bards, something her sister queen Visenya had thought a waste. But those singers made songs of praise for the Targaryens and carried them throughout the realm. And those songs also contained bold lies that made Aegon and his sister seem all more the glorious. Sorry, the queen did not rule it, although the maesters might. And also, like we learn about all the men that are around her and around her cousins in our court, and that also is somewhat reminiscent of Visenya. So again, from the world of Ice and Fire, the queen also did much to bring the realm together through the marriages she arranged between far-flung houses. So although in that case, like most of the people listed in the beginning of the chapter are either King's Landing's guard, knights, or people from the Reach, there still seem to be a lot of matchmaking going on, which is a really important role for a queen to hold. And yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe if it's mostly Reach, it could be because of the relatively recent position of the Tyrells as liege of the Reach. So maybe that's why they don't branch out yet on other kingdoms. So what do you guys think about the opening of the chapter? I would say, yeah, from when they arrive, and all the description of the people surrounding Margaery. Sorry.
If I may go first, I think like describing all the people who are surrounding Margaery and her trying to like come up with the plan for. Well, no, I don't even think she came up with the plan for later by this point. But it's her, you can kind of see the wheels spinning in her head because she's like, all right, there's all these guys who are around her who obviously think that she's pretty. But then, there's her cousins, and she's just kind of thinking, okay, well, this one likes that one likes this one, that one likes this one. How can I possibly use this to my advantage? Because I need to get rid of her, but she still hasn't put all the pieces together. But you can see her, especially when she's talking to Taena about, like, who's been there, and Taena kind of is getting the hint of what Cersei might be trying to do, especially when she brings up Loras. And they're like, okay, well, we can't say too much because we don't want to possibly have someone give it away that we're looking for a way to set up Margaery. So it's just interesting to see, like, she's like, look, I got to figure out something. There's something there, but I'm just not able to connect the dots just yet. But if I can put the pieces together, then, sooner or later, I'll just be able to throw something against the wall, and sooner or later something will stick to her. So that's what I found interesting about this particular part with her discussion.
What I like about this is how Cersei almost basically assumes that Margaery is doing all kinds, like all this swooping around. Like she pretty much assumes that Margaery thinks like how she thinks and acts like how, Cersei acts. I mean, even in other chapters, she's like talking about how Margaery might be hooking up with Loras. Like that's just a normal thing to do. Like, yeah, doesn't everyone hook up with their brothers? Yeah, she's obviously hooking up. Like,
I completely agree, Jerry. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was reading this chapter, and like how your own experience and your own actions, and manage, control really where your thoughts go, She's automatically assuming that because she's surrounded by men that adore her, that she's having an affair because she's been having always affairs. And how she goes to the thoughts about Loras, and her thought instantly is that, her and Loras, because her and Jaime were like for her is like instinct. So she's like, for something that most people would like, oh, her brother's visiting her. No one would jump to that assumption. But since she's been having an affair with her brother since like forever, that's immediately where her mind goes. And I'm like, it's actually one of the problems that I think Cersei has, since she's not able to judge people by who they are and try to think how they think. She's always putting her thoughts, her way of thinking, and forcing them into others and trying to judge them for that kind of thinking, which is why people keep surprising her, because she doesn't try to think like they do, which means that she cannot anticipate them. It's one of her biggest flaws. She thinks herself. There's a moment in this chapter actually that she thinks, "Oh, my father wouldn't have been able to do it better." When she is just because she doesn't see the other person. She doesn't see what the other person is thinking and really reacting. She only sees what she would do and when she would react, and that just completely blinds her. And that's how she gets herself in all of these situations, and why she's not a good queen.
She might have been fucking Moon Boy for all we know.
What's funny though is how it's like, yeah, of course, we know Marjorie's not sleeping with Loras, but what's funny is she's probably right about her sleeping with somebody, because she's, Pycelle says later she's drinking the moon tea, so, Margaery is probably a cheater and deserves what she's getting. And it's for the first reread on this and Dance, I was Team Margaery, and I felt, man, she's innocent, but no, thinking about it, she was taking moon tea, so she was probably Margaery's probably sleeping with somebody.
I don't know.
Well,
I wanted to talk about Pycelle afterwards.
We don't know that the moon tea. We only know that Pycelle is delivering moon tea to Margaery at her request, but we don't necessarily know that she's the one taking it. If she's brokering a bunch of betrothals between people who are interested in one another, she might be acting on one of their behalfs. But going back to the idea of Cersei projecting the Jaime and her relationship onto Margaery and Loras, I think it's interesting because it shows how easily read Cersei is, or in that maybe Meriwether is testing something, because Taena Meriwether is the one who actually suggests that Margaery and Loras are sleeping together. She's the one who plants the idea, not Cersei. But Cersei believes it and goes along with it because, as you said, she's had that experience. So it's something that's extremely plausible to her. And
thinks it at other times too, like you and that Meriwether.
Yeah. And it's just it's interesting because she thinks that these people are only around Margaery because she believes that these people could only be interested in Margaery as suitors. But as Anne was saying, Margaery is brokering these alliances. Another person that was not mentioned, that you didn't mention, that's brought up, is Jalabhar Jo, who is a potential political ally if he's able to reclaim the Summer Islands or Summer Isles. And he's outside of Westeros, so it's just interesting that it's all framed in this idea of it's just gossip, it's just these two women gossiping with one another, but it's just, for me, kind of weird because it's none of this gossip is necessarily true or has a figment of truth. It's, as you were all saying, just Taena Meriwether trying to see whatever's gonna capture Cersei's attention.
Yeah,
I want to expand on the.
Sorry, just a quick question. We all agree that Taena is a double agent, right?
Okay, that's exactly what I was getting to. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Well, just pretty much that. That we all agree here that Taena is trying to pull some Littlefinger shit on Cersei, right? Is it? Does anyone have any idea what? Because I know she's doing.
I don't know what.
I have no idea. I have no clue, though. I haven't been able to figure out what her game, who she's working for. I have not gone all Jack Bauer on her, so...
Yeah,
will be revealed. Will be revealed.
We know it's not Littlefinger because he's almost bummed out that... that's... I mean, on paper, she would look like a Littlefinger agent, but we know from Sansa's POV that he's almost pissed of how fast things are falling apart.
Have you guys listened to... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Let's say, have you guys listened to the audiobook? Mayweather's, her voice is like an accent. It's it's a different kind of accent than everybody else that Roy Dotrice does the voice of.
Yeah, because she's Mirish, right?
Yeah.
But does Roy Dotrice do...
No, it's even different from other people. Well, I can't think of anybody else from Mirish she does, but it's not the same. It's different the way he does it. It's just different.
Iron Throne was calling it a fake French accent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It kind of sounds French.
I'm not sure what version of the audiobook I have, so I'm not sure about that. But yeah, so I don't know, could be, she could be working for the Queen of Thorns. That's a possibility. Because we don't really know what their end game is. But like we're saying, what's incredible is that what Taena is describing could really well be what's going on, because that is perfectly normal queen behavior and Margaery is the queen. Except the way she just phrases things and gives a little hint, because she knows Cersei so well, she doesn't say anything bad. She doesn't compromise herself. Yet she plants all those seeds into Cersei's brain. It's like everything Cersei does pretty much is planted by Taena.
Mayweather's playing the Game of Thrones like everybody outside.
So she would know. She has some intel on Cersei's life as it's gone.
I was gonna say Mayweather's playing the Game of Thrones like everybody else.
Yeah. And Jaime even warned Cersei a couple of chapters prior that, oh, don't trust that woman, don't trust that woman, don't trust that woman. And Cersei's super dismissive, like, oh, yeah, I know, don't worry. I'm only using her to get info. I know how to manipulate her through her son. But she never does. And she just, gets caught at her own game. So among all the people that were listed as part of Margaery's court, something you brought up, you touched on, LT, there was our good old Grand Maester Pycelle. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is up with Pycelle? Because he seems to be conspiring against Cersei. Later, he removes Osfrid as a commander of the City Watch, telling Cersei and so he cannot try to free her and his brother from the faith. And then he also tells Cersei about giving Moonty to Margaery. I mean, that Margaery requests Moonty and that he brings it. So we know he's working with Kevin later, but do you think they've been playing a long game since the death of Tywin, or what do you think is going on there?
So, Pycelle is just a little worm who just likes to please everyone with, he does have strong leanings to the Lannisters, particularly Kevin, as we saw. But the dude's just a worm. He kind of puts himself kind of everywhere. So, I mean, I don't think there's really much thought to Pycelle other than he's just, a little wormy guy.
Jerry put it perfectly, and every time I think of Pycelle, I'm just glad he gets what he deserves, because when he told Varys to open up the gates, he caused a lot of deaths, man. Not Varys, he told the Mad King to open up the gates, and it caused a lot of deaths. So Pycelle Jerry said he's a worm, and I want to choke him.
I do find it funny that Cersei's like, oh, he's ran my patience, he's annoyed me to the end. My patience with this guy. I'm like, he's one of your most biggest supporters, even despite his little worming around with others too.
I agree, but I think that he was mostly Tywin Lannister supporter. I think that, he saw, Pycelle's been in King's Landing a very long time, and we've heard in the book that he used to be different when he was young, not in the sense that he was less stupid, but you could see who he was, his intelligence, his words, his stuff. He later became more cruel and more cold, but for a lot of people, he just became more efficient. But he was always deadly, he was always intelligent, he was always powerful, and he was someone that people saw. It's one of the reasons why the Mad King wanted him gone, because they said that he was the one that was ruling, and you could see it. He was a powerful man, he was a rich man, he was an intelligent man, someone very much capable of ruling the Seven Kingdoms, even if he was not the bloody king, or ruling through other kings. So I think Pycelle felt that he was just the best bet to back. As Jerry says, he's a worm. Worms want to survive at any cost. And Tywin was the best way to do that. And then Tywin is dead. And Pycelle is a worm, but he's not an idiot worm. He can clearly see that, Cersei is not her father. Jaime's clearly not. And then Kevin kind of left. When he comes back, then yeah, he's all for being with Kevin, because Kevin is also strong. It's not as good as as Tywin is, but he's someone who's competent. And I think that right now with Tywin gone, he's like, okay, so how can I keep being useful so that I can still survive? My leanings are still there, but Tywin is not there anymore. So I think once Kevin came back, he was like, okay, I feel more secure with him. But until then, he's like, okay, how do I play the field?
I would argue that about Tywin being better than Kevin, but that's another issue there.
But I mean, that's the idea that's there that people have. Even if it's not, whatever you believe, it's what you're gonna do.
I got a quick question for everybody, and this is all right. So, do you think possibly Pycelle's probably been around Jaime and Cersei and Tyrion since they're little, because they're in King's Landing when they're little? Do you think there's any kind of relationship there? Do you think he loves them or cares for them, like Krasen cared for Stannis and Robert and Renly at all?
Please, Pycelle doesn't care about anyone except himself.
Also, Pycelle wasn't necessarily, he was there, I guess, but he was only serving them directly, because, wouldn't Jaime and Cersei and Tyrion would have mostly grown up at Casterly Rock, because Tywin sent Lady Joanna away, and that means that they would have been served by a different Maester, and not Pycelle. Pycelle only really serves Cersei to an extent when Cersei goes to King's Landing at Tywin's request, partially for Rhaegar things, and then they say no, and then also later on for Robert. So I think his loyalty is really just to Tywin because he spent a lot of time with him, and you see the way he talks about Tywin. It's I think it's he really just is very loyal and has a great love for Tywin, and maybe it's bad and it's misplaced and he's willing to do bad things for it, but I think that he sincerely believes in the vision that Tywin has.
Maybe Tinker's right. Maybe after Tywin died, it's all about him. Maybe before Tywin, when Tywin was alive, like you said, he was devoted to him, but maybe Tinker's right. It's just, he's all about himself now after Tywin died.
I think he cares to a certain extent, but I mean, a worm only cares so much. I mean, it's just a matter of, he cares this much about, some of the Lannisters, and he cares this much about himself.
I mean, listen, let's be honest here. Tywin was the guy who kept him around, where most people probably would have looked at what he did, especially with opening the doors to King's Landing, and would have been like, all right, well, thank you, but now you got to go. Because look at what Tyrion did when Tyrion was hand. So when it comes to Pycelle, you have Cersei who's thinking to herself, he was loyal to my father and the family for all this time, and what changed? And she's not thinking of the fact that, Pycelle is on self-preservation mode because, she sees herself as, as the woman version of Tywin. And she's not realizing that no one else sees her that way. So when it comes to Pycelle, she's just like, oh, he's just fucking disloyal just to be disloyal. And it's like, no, you're crazy. Your father wasn't, and I can't count on crazy to keep me alive. Sane, yes. Crazy, absolutely not.
At least he doesn't fart in a meeting here. So.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's why they're making such a big deal of that, but that's neither here nor there, and not in that chapter. Anything else on Pycelle?
I think we could move to how they're talking about the faith and the High Septon and the.
Yeah. I just wanted to say it's so we have a lot of one line named there in that chapter of all the people around Margaery, and I just thought it was cute that there was Mark Mellendor, who people might not really remember that much, but I mean he's not a minor character, but he's definitely a secondary character. But then there's a little I'm sorry, I can't find the word. The little clue about his monkey that we also hear about in Brienne's chapter when he's trying to to I'm sorry, seduce her with a little monkey, and that they're talking about like that's really gimmicky thing. Okay, so yes, definitely. Let's move on. Here, we in for a long info dump on the Faith and the Septons, and like a lot of history where Dana. I mean, like it's a not so good literary process from George, but it still works okay. Like Dana feigns to not know anything about the Faith, and so Cersei can fill her in, and also us in on important aspects of the Faith. So, Jerry, you want to talk about that? What did you think about that part of the chapter?
Her talking about the Faith with Meriwether here.
Yeah. I mean, she's in the leader, so it's way before she meets the Septon. Yeah.
I mean, she's not 100% wrong here, but she does have a lot of nerve to be looking down at all these people like these. She's like, these are the biggest dummies I've ever met and I've ever heard in my life. She looks down on their choices of Septon. She thinks that maybe I need to pick someone. She's just talks about all their everything, their history in the past, but puts a negative spin on it. Like, yeah, they're so stupid. Blah blah blah. And that's really that. There's really not too much more to say other than she just thinks of them as stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So there's a lot
really
of
underestimates them, I guess. How about that? You can really see the underestimating right here.
Is this the same Eric? Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, and again, Tina like pushes her that way. She's like, because Cersei, it's started by Cersei saying, they don't like wickedness, and Tina like says, they apparently don't like soap and water either. And like she again, like same thing. She shapes her thoughts and tries to get her somewhere in the conversation. So sorry, LT.
No, it's okay. Is this the same area where they're talking about how Baylor had a High Septon that was 7 years old, right? Is this the same area?
Yeah. That's that part.
He did. He first he had that guy who was a carpenter. He's like, he's the Smith to be born. Then they kind of transition to where she talks about bringing kids over.
Yeah, and Mayweather said that her son could be High Septon because he's like 7, right, or something like that.
Yeah, and then they transitioned to her saying, why don't you bring Septon, or why don't you bring your son over so Tommen can have a friend? And she thinks like, Joffrey had no friends. That was the only issue with Joffrey. He had no friends. That's the only thing wrong with him.
Oh yeah, no, I want to talk about that also later.
That's where fantasy and reality is different, because in this day and age, a 7-year-old doesn't know crap, man. I mean, he can't be a priest. I mean, in the real world,
Oh, come on, but
I don't think you could really.
Yeah, I was doing some high level math at 7.
That's unique, Jerry. That's very unique.
That's part of the reason why she kind of mentions it as a negative. Like, look at this guy that was such an idiot that who could put an 8-year-old in that kind of position. And I found this part amusing because the way that she thinks sometimes, like, she doesn't realize how much of an idiot she's being. But in some points, she just also kind of has a point, because there's a moment in which she's talking about how they just don't have names anymore, and she's like, then how the hell does anyone talk about them? Like, well, he's the fat guy, and it's really is impractical. If you don't have names, how are you supposed to Maester keep track of them, or history, or anything? I found that very, very impractical.
I agree with.
No, sorry.
No, having a friend was obviously not, the main problem with Joffrey at all. But, being completely isolated and being, the only prince, and having it does make you more antisocial. If you do have a social group and you're, supposedly, the problem is that you taught to share and stuff. It might have been not. I don't think it would have been the same Joffrey, but it would have been, she does have a point. People do need other children. People do need people their own age. Isolation and just thinking yourself you're the king of the world is not doing anyone any favors. But she kind of has like little tiny moments, but they're just like not unfulfilled at all, and she has so much bullshit in her head, and she thinks she's such the queen of the world that it's for nothing. Those tiny just.
I also want to say that I do agree a little bit with what a point Tink made earlier. She is saying stupid stuff, but she is doing a few blind squirrel things where she does have a point here and there. I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but it kind of talks about, it still fits with this, how she's judging the faith before she even meets him. She talks about like how mad she got when Baelor put his sisters in the tower for the only reason because they were pretty, and that's something to really be mad at. Baelor was an idiot, and Baelor should be judged for being an idiot, but at the same time, her reaction to it was, well, I'm gonna go pinch Tyrion, so she's just as stupid.
I want to contradict Jerry, but first Eliana has something to say.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it's interesting. What you were saying about what Tink was saying about Joffrey and people needing friends, because Cersei just never makes that connection about Tommen needing friends. So all the stuff about Margaery earlier on, because not only is it necessary for the development of those social skills and so forth that Joffrey never had, even for diplomacy, etc., it's good for Tommen, and it would have been good for Joffrey to have close friends, especially those among the higher born, because then you get to form those alliances. And when you form those alliances, you have people you can turn to. For example, if a Mad King calls for your head, and you can be like, hey, best friend who happens to now be Lord Paramount of the North, we need to rebel. So, and we also saw that playing a really big part in terms of like the warding of Robert Arryn in the first book. And then it's regarding the info dump of the Faith of the Seven, and this connects to later on. You just really get to see how when the Targaryens come into power, how much it's just weakened the faith and their power and their political power. And it's interesting because then it seems kind of dumb that none of them have any names. But if they don't have any names and you can't tell where they come from, to an extent that could be used as a political advantage. But because the faith has been declawed, they can't.
Yeah, but also... sorry.
I was going to jump back on what Eliana was saying about, the info dump. And contradicting Jerry at the same time. Saying, Baelor is crazy. Yes, Baelor is crazy. Again, like, we don't really have any insight into Baelor's point of view, but... Okay, from the world of Ice and Fire, we learned that the Faith was very powerful, very anti-Targ. And even though Maegor disarmed them, that, they were still very independent, they could still, have a lot of political sway. And Baelor, we always see him, even in the world of Ice and Fire, we kind of see him that way as a crazy fanatic. But what he really did, like, because the Faith accepted him really truthfully as a holy man, they let him sway on the election of the High Septon, which was not the case before, and that allowed King's Landing to have more sway into the I'm trying to say that word, the top ranking officers of the Faith. Which they did not have before, which we see in Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings and even Storm of Sword that, the Lannisters really take advantage of. So really, like, Baelor, now I'm not going to say did good for the Faith, but what he did, he really helped the Faith become more integrated with the political power in sort of a good way for the people ruling.
But what's that have to do with locking women in the tower? I mean, he did okay. So he did bridge a little bit with the faith, sure, but that doesn't mean some of the things he did weren't stupid.
It never said walking into Viper Pit, stupid. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I never said he wasn't stupid. I'm saying that maybe he could have some political, like we don't have any insight on whether or not he had any political insight on what he was doing. But anyway, so just to say that Cersei makes fun of the High Septon for choosing whoever he chose, but still she reaps the benefits of the involvement of the monarchy into the faith. Sorry, Tinker.
No, it's just I was thinking that, as you say, we don't know, but it looks more like it's more like a happy accident, more than him actually knowing what he was doing, like bridging that gap.
Yeah, possibly. But even if it was a happy accident, like that led, at first they were really two separate entities, and then they grew some bond, and I think Baylor really helped that, not even necessarily willingly, but that I don't think the hand or the queen or the king had that much sway in deciding who the next High Septon would be. Like we see that happening in the first 3 books, like how they put all their little pieces in place to have the High Septon that they want. And maybe that's also because of what Baylor did, even though it might not have been for political purpose at the time. Don Willie, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say, fuck Baylor. Baylor was crazy. Baylor was an idiot. And he should have died getting bitten by all those fucking vipers in Dorne. Yeah, man, you walk in the fucking bone way barefoot as a sign of, this is a sign of peace. Man, fuck Baylor.
Yeah, but the man had faith. The man had faith and he believed in something. I mean, that's very powerful to me.
Listen, just because you believe in something doesn't make you less of an idiot.
To other people, I mean, I respect people. Look, I don't agree with it, but I respect it that he believed in something so much. And it's my thing. I've never been religious, but if I was religious, like say I was going to become a Christian tomorrow, I would try and do that shit 100%. And that's what he did. And I respect that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we're real quick, and then this will be my last thing about Baylor. I get what you're saying, but I'll be honest with you. I think on the low, he might have actually been a deviant. Because, you know what? In order for him to decide that he's going to lock up his sisters because they're just too beautiful, as opposed to saying, okay, you know what, cool, I'm not going to partake in the whole incest thing, but the faith have accepted it for the family or whatever. He could have always married them off to another house, to distant relatives, to Valarians, whatever. He's just like, no, because I have urges that I might not be able to quell. I'm gonna lock them up in the damn tower. So yeah, man of faith or not, fuck Baylor. That dude was a sycophant on the low.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's covering up some assassination attempts that these girls were trying to do on him, he has no. I can't see how seeing in his point of view will ever justify that.
Okay, stop Baylor talk.
Yes, let's go forward because I think we could talk about this a long time.
I wasn't going to talk about Baylor, but what I was going to say, you mentioned about the Sparrows having no names, and remember a little later, the High Septon or High Sparrow mentions how, they don't have no homes to go back to. Cersei's like, go or send them back to their homes, but they don't have no homes to go to. So they're not the same people as they once was. That's why they don't have no names.
Eliana, were you going to say something?
No, I didn't have much to say. I just really like that idea that Lieutenant Giles, LT Giles. How do I say
just
this?
LT.
Giles.
Just LT.
Made because it about the idea of displacement and how it affects someone's identity, and just having no roots and no home, like, tears you apart from who you are. And I just like that idea.
Yeah, no, that's a very beautiful idea. I think, like, once we get to the second part and she talks to the High Septon, we can really discuss that. One last thing, as a rebuttal to Cersei and Joffrey actually two things, not having friends first. It's our plan, as discussed in that previous Jaime chapter with Taena, was to, I can manipulate her through her son. And she, Taena is not stupid. She knows that once her son is in King's Landing, he's basically a hostage. But, like, Cersei hardly tries and then just, like, moves on to her little dreams about her kids. And doesn't insist, doesn't try to, that's something she's not trying to scheme on when she's trying to scheme on everything and never lets everything go. She's like, okay, I get it. And secondly, why did Joffrey not have any kids around him? Again, to go back to Margaery, that we don't really see firsthand, but being a model queen, compared to Cersei, did she not have a court around her? Did she not have anyone who had kids that could be Joffrey's friends? Like, she was a really bad queen. Like, we don't see any memories of her younger ruling years, and how, like, she never reflects on how she was a queen, but, like, where were the kids?
So we actually discussed this a little on Maester Monthly about how there isn't a sort of court around Cersei even when she was younger, like how she didn't have any friends. And as we see with Margaery, it seems as though that falls into and as you were all saying about her brokering marriages, that seems to fall in the realm of maybe like women's roles and their realm of power, as opposed to men's roles. And Tywin didn't arrange for Cersei to have friends and to build those alliances. In fact, he kind of like closed himself off. He was like, no, Elia Martell's kids can't play here anymore now that Joanna's not around, because Joanna was the one with those social connections. And because Joanna was dead, she wasn't able to build those alliances and connections for her own kids. And thus Cersei hadn't thought to do that for her own children as well.
See, if Robert would have made Ned hand right off the bat, Joffrey would have grew up with Bran and Rickon and all them and the other kids, and he would have had people around him. That would have been great for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Maybe he could have grown out of being an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the main problems also is that I don't think Cersei just has no freaking idea what friends are. There's a moment which she actually talks about Ned. He's like an idiot fool, but a loyal one. That's all she sees. She sees a lackey that will be with you, that will die for you. She doesn't see what a friend would really afford. So why would she create a court and friends for her son if she doesn't really get it? She just doesn't understand it. She was like, oh yeah, I had her until she died, but she clearly she didn't care about her folk. And Jaime, for her, I don't believe that she even loves him. I think that he's just, a reflection for her. She said, like, the reflection. I think she's kind of like what she would want to be, like a man, because then would mean Castle Rock would be her. She would have power. She would have strength. It's kind of like what she would want. And I think that she kind of attaches, and Jaime will do what she can't do. So, but, how are you going to create a court and friends and stuff for your son if you wouldn't want it for yourself because you don't really get what a friend is?
I like how she just casually said, says, oh, she died to the girl she threw down the well.
And Tommen's one friend she wants to get rid of, who loves Tommen, in my opinion. Loras was training him and being around him, and Cersei ships him off or sends him to Dragonstone, and that was the worst thing she could do. I would have kept Loras around Tommen.
No, she doesn't want Tommen around Loras because Tommen will start to care about Loras, will start to really, because Cersei might love her kids, but we've seen how Cersei treats her kid, like in the funeral, with Tywin's funeral, how she was like looking down on him and judging him and saying, oh, Joffrey would have been a true lion. Like, come on, she might love her kids, but she's not really capable of showing love properly. So she doesn't want Tommen to get attached to what she thinks are her enemies because, then his loyalties might be divided. And come on, between a woman who just wants your power and treats you not so well and stuff, and friends that generally care about you, that spend time with you, it's the problem is that she isn't changing her attitude towards her kids.
And the whip boys, remember the whip boys? How she'd, when Tommen defied her and she'd get a whip boy. That's just messed up, man.
I agree. Can we move on?
Yes.
A little bit? Okay, so finally we understand, we had the important information of the chapter only almost one third through, which is why when the scene opens, we don't know what the hell Cersei is doing, going to Sept of Baelor, and we finally find out that it's because the new High Septon has not blessed Tommen yet, and that's a very important thing for a king. That's a very important symbol. Cersei reflects, Aegon the Conqueror himself had dated the sword of his realm from the day of the High Septon anointed him in Old Town. These wretched priests will obey or learn how weak and human he still is. So why Taina suggests that it's because he wants gold, but what do you think? Why? I know we're gonna talk about the High Sparrows endgame later, but do you think anything of why he has not blessed Tommen yet?
He wants power. Yeah, that's what it really means. You've talked about how they lost power with the Targaryens, and their dragons. The Targaryens are gone, and their dragons are gone, and the Seven Kingdoms are fucked up now. There's war everywhere. People are miserable. People are starving. And it's kind of like the perfect opportunity and the perfect moment for the faith to rise up to what they used to be, because it's moments of strife, it's moments of desperation, it's moments where people barely have food to eat. They're already dying. They will, if you give them something to believe in, something to hope for, they will fight to the death, because what the hell else do they have to do? So it's the moment that they need. Tywin is dead. Tommen is a little boy. Now is the moment that he has to barter, to play with someone who's arrogant, who's someone who, not only that, he's not an idiot. Everyone knows that Cersei's had a lot to do with this war. They're in debt a lot. How many? She owes 900,000, 700 and whatever, almost a million. Just to the faith, I mean. So she's in debt with them. She's in debt with everything. It's just, now is the moment. What you were saying. How the royal family had an influence on the new High Septon, but not with this one. This one was chosen by the devout, by his own people, by the people that are starving, the people that are desperate, the people that are absolutely everywhere. And he's gotten her to go to him. Not only that, she has to get out of her carriage, palanquin, whatever, and that's to walk all the way there. He manages to strip her of her 2 Kingsguard. This is the moment where the faith can rise up and get the power that they lost with the Targaryens.
Real quick, do you guys
I'm
know
going to disagree on that being a goal, because no one could predict this kind of stupid that Cersei was going to do. So I think at first he was just trying to get some respect back, because let's be honest, they were kind of dissing the faith here. They weren't paying them any of the money they had back. They were pretty much ignoring them. He just wanted to say, hey, we have a voice here. We need some help. He got. We'll talk about what transpired later, but at least at first, he was just like, let's get a little respect.
So. I think his endgame was always to get power. I think it was just, come on, it's clearly planned how he works, how he gets her to strip of the Kingsguard, how he gets her, all those people that will not move. There's too many coincidences for things to have not been arranged, maybe not like perfectly like every single thing because you can't.
Everything you mentioned is more of a respect thing. Like, honor our rules, honor our stuff. Just show us some respect here. It's not necessarily gaining more power. It's more like, respecting what they already have.
It's also power. She completely overlooked it. If you get respect from you have to. It's a way of getting power.
Is the golden dragon?
It's the power that they already had, is what I'm saying. That this is things that should be happening. Like
they
already.
Didn't have any power. They didn't even get to choose their own people. They would give them a crown, and then they would expect to do what they would want. Now she's doing what he wants. He's changing the roles.
I think Eliana had something to say.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I was like, I don't see the whole respect and power thing as separate. I think that the respect and acquiescing to what the High Sparrow says is power, and I think that he doesn't know necessarily what he's going to get out of this negotiation, but he knows that the cards are in his hand when it comes to legitimizing Tommen, and he's very pragmatic, compared to, like, in the previous chapter, we see some of that, with the Jaime chapter, we see some ideas of, like, the role and influence that religion can have in someone's life with Bonifer Hasty and how he deals with Harrenhal. He's like, I'm just going to pray and the warrior's going to protect me. The High Sparrow doesn't do that. He justifies his actions and says, oh, but the gods say we should do it like this. And he spins everything in his, to his advantage.
Well, when I say respect and versus power, I'm saying he's more, right now he's a little bit like, like Walter from The Big Lebowski. He's like, we got rules here. We respect the rules, follow the rules. I don't think at this moment, he's trying to rewrite the rules, which we see later.
Mm-mm.
Do you guys know if the 900,000 gold dragons, was that just Robert's reign, or was that going back to the Targaryens? That they owed the faith? You guys don't
Sorry,
know?
what was that again? What was the question?
My question is this 900,000 golden dragons that the crown owes the faith, is that just Robert's reign, or does that go back all the way to the Targaryens?
I had that question also when I was reading this chapter because I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what is this debt? And I saw somewhere else, I was looking, I think, again at the Cersei chapter that precedes this one, Cersei 5, and I believe these are debts to the faith that are brokered by Littlefinger.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
You know what though? I'm thinking that the debt to the faith is probably during Robert's reign, because if I'm not mistaken, they were saying that by the time Robert took the throne, like there was actually a surplus that he got from Ares, and he spent the entire surplus and then wound up going into crazy amounts of debt. So I think that must have been from Robert's reign.
Yeah, Dunwell's right.
No, this is a little off topic, but just a question I have too. Okay, say Stannis wins at Blackwater. Is he going to just kill all the faith and the High Septon, and just because he's the Red God, or anybody who believes in the Red God or a different God, are they just going to kill them all? Probably. Would you guys say?
No, he's never forced anyone to. He hasn't forced people to switch yet. Why is he all of a sudden going to do it now?
Because if he's there, if he takes the throne, they're going to be trying to tell him what to do, right? Or try and he wouldn't want to pay the debt, right? I mean, he doesn't,
But so far, the faith has not really been trying to influence the throne that much until that High Septon. Again, we can think if Stannis had won the Blackwater, if the war had stopped earlier, would there be such a resurgence of the faith, such a Sparrow movement? It's tough to say, but I agree with Jerry. No, Stannis is not a fanatic. He's pretty pragmatic. He would not impose a holy war on his kingdom.
Not only that, he wouldn't be that stupid.
Yeah, what you would see is probably a less, less of the seven, and he'd probably build something for Lord. So you'd have just another faction.
I think we'll find out in the Winds of Winter that the High Sparrow's got something to hide.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk about that a lot when we get there. Okay, then we're almost at the end of the first part of the chapter. So Cersei talks about the depths, blah blah blah. Then we have we're caught up on the ships are big built, and then Cersei can no longer progress on her litter. I don't know how to pronounce that, because there are so many sparrows. Like it says, Qyburn had brought her reports of their numbers, but hearing about them was one thing and seeing them another. Hundreds were encamped upon the plaza, hundreds more in the gardens. Their cook fires filled the air with smoke and stinks. Rough-spun tents and miserable hovels made of mud and scrap wood besmirched the pristine white marble. They were even huddled on the steps beneath the great sept towering doors. And that made me think a little bit on the other side of the narrow sea about all the encampment of Dany's freed slaves that just gathered outside of the walls of Meereen. But do you guys have anything else to say before we move on to the second part?
I just got another quick question. Okay, say Dany takes the throne. Does she inherit the debt?
Yeah.
Man, I'd be pissed if I took the throne and I had to pay 900,000 gold dragons.
That's the
Of course,
cost.
I mean,
Give it to someone else.
the
A lot
debt belongs to people who are not the crown. You know, it's not the debt of the crown to the crown. It's not even the debt to the crown lands. The Braavosi bankers, who Tycho apparently has been harassing Giles Rosby, doesn't care who sits the Iron Throne. And the faith technically doesn't really either.
Yeah, it's to the throne. It's to the throne, and whoever sits on it. So the only way I think you could probably get rid of that debt is just by saying no more Iron Throne. I'm going to start something totally new and whatever.
Or they
Well,
pay
you
the
can-
debts because the Lannisters are supposed to always pay their debts and not Cersei, I guess.
Or you could just, destroy the faith.
Like Maegor the Cruel did, right?
Yeah, but
Completely.
but that won't save them from the other debt. You know,
Yeah.
when Elena was saying that she thinks that the debt was probably broken by Littlefinger, my first thought was like, that bastard Littlefinger. It's like it wouldn't surprise me because he clearly has planned in a certain way so that, the person that's in the throne is screwed. So that because he obviously wants someone that he can control or himself in that throne. And he's clearly engineered so things will go really, really bad for them, and he's just let them in debt with so many people. Like if you're in debt only with one person, you can kind of deal with them and have a little plan with them. But if you're indebted to like several different kind of people, then more people have more power over you, and you have less, less control on how you kind of move yourself. Is just seriously, Littlefinger. He's an evil.
Hey, that's good though. That's good for. He's given a good interest rate for the commoners over the crown. You want the 1%ers to get all that money? They have all the good interest rate, all the good money.
Okay,
No.
Littlefinger is a 1%er, and he just wants all the power for himself. He cares nothing for the little people.
Baelish is just trying to make Westeros great again, and you don't like it.
No, don't do that.
All right, so shall we go and meet this dirty High Septon?
Oh yeah, we shall. I love that her first thought, Cersei's first thought is, I had known I was going to have to walk, I would have dressed for it. That's hilarious. That I started laughing with that. So Cersei passes through as still to walk through all of the sparrows who camp on the steps of the sept. Sorry, I've not drunk that much champagne yet. What do you guys think about the bones of the holy men and women murdered for their faiths, like that are at the bottom of Baelor's statue? It made me think a tiny bit of Oh God, the Pirate King.
Euron?
Euron. Thank you.
Okay.
For some reason with the dead gods, but that's a pretty heartbreaking paragraph about the destruction of the faith, but not from the top, not the high, not the rich High Septon or the most devout, but like all those men and women in villages that are just pillaged. So, what do you think of that?
I mean, well, listen, you know what? For one, there's war throughout the entirety of the Seven Kingdoms, and we're not exactly sure in which part the Sparrow movement started, right? But most of the war is outside of the Crown Lands, and these people have been pouring in to the city in droves. And the fact that you had people who decided, oh, we're gonna bring the bones of the dead and place them at the foot of Baelor's statue, to the point where it's almost burying the statue at this point is kind of crazy, because like imagine if you're an aristocrat, um that scene that there must be. First off, you're seeing all these people who, like, you're not friendly to the poor as it is, and then you see, like, yeah, you're not super religious, but you do hold a reverence for the faith of the seven, and the place that's supposed to be the most holy place in all of the capital, and the statue that's supposed to be the big symbol of this is littered with the bones of the dead, and just a bunch of poor people who were, probably smelling like they haven't washed in forever. Like, that's just a crazy scene to even think about in the first place. So I'm pretty sure Cersei, not only was shocked but absolutely disgusted. And honestly speaking, I think even most of us in the modern world today, if we would come across a scene like that, we might not feel too differently than what Cersei does, especially if you've risen to a place of prominence and you're supposed to go and meet the leader of your religious order. You're sitting up there like, what the hell is this, man? Why is this here?
I don't even think you'd be able to open your mouth from the smell that it would come off. It'd be smelling like, I don't know, like feet wrapped in leathery burnt bacon. It'd be gross.
Yeah, but again, you compare that with the scene of Dany going outside to feed people, and like that's a very stark contrast. Like, I agree totally with you, Don Willie. Like, I'm not blaming Cersei for being an average human being there, but there's a really big contrast between the way she acts and that very like sort of religious figure, Dany helping the poor.
Well, let's be fair though. Dany's had a little bit of training hanging out with the Dothraki and all their horse manure and all that. So,
well, but I don't think she completely acts, as you say, as a natural human being, because let's not forget that Cersei is partly responsible for the bloody war happening. Like, things started happening when Bran caught Jaime and her, and Bran got thrown out the window. That was part of what started, because it actually got Tyrion kidnapped by Catelyn, and that's when partly Tywin took his troops to the Riverlands, and then everything that happened with Joffrey and Ned Stark. Like, she's really responsible for a great amount of all the pain that's been happening. And when she sees them, she only feels the disgust, the horror. But there's no guilt there. Not even a tiny little glimmer of, I'm partly responsible for the suffering of all of these people. There is no compassion and pity for the suffering of any of these people. She just puts the blame somewhere else and just only see what's uncomfortable for her. Not the fact that these people probably do not want to live this way. Like, people like, the high life she's having, I'm sure any one of those people there would trade it for what they have. They just don't have options. And in no moment does it and none of that goes through their heads. In no moment she thinks, oh my God, look about horrible, how bad they must be feeling, how horrible this is for them. She only thinks how horrible this is for her.
I know, that's what you said earlier, Tinker, about her not being able to see the way other people are thinking, not being able to put herself in other people's shoes.
I think we already pretty much knew that Cersei was a sociopath, and if you didn't already know, this pretty much confirms it right here, what Tinker just said.
I mean, well, if you think about it, she's someone who grew up rich, and her entire life, people, not only who are in her own circle, but the servants who've been around her, who served her for years, have given her an inflated sense of self and an inflated sense of entitlement. So for her, it's like, all right, well, I'm the queen. I have all this power and prestige because I'm supposed to have it. And if you people are here and you're poor, that's what you're supposed to be. Because, remember, this isn't a society where just anyone can rise up on their own merit. Like, you have to be born into a family. And if you raise up any other way, it's because someone who came from a noble family decided, hey, you know what? I like you. I'm gonna do you this favor, and I'm gonna, give you some crumbs off of the table real quick. But for everyone else, it's like, all right, well, they're poor and they deserve to be, But just because you're poor and you deserve to be doesn't mean that you clog up my space and make me uncomfortable. And that's her biggest problem. And we see a lot of people. Even today, even people who have made their own way in the world, it's like they get to a certain point and they're like, well, I made it, I'm here, and I'm rich because I'm supposed to be. And if you're not rich, it's because you're an idiot and you're lazy and you deserve to be poor. And you see how they treat people. So imagine if you have someone who, in their own mind, they feel as though it's anointed by the gods that they're supposed to have this exalted place in society. So for her, she's looking at it like, look, this is a place where, the most high entities that I actually pray to have given us to worship them, and here you are, defiling it with your lowliness. Just the fact that you are lower than me, and that's the thing about it that is kind of hard for us to wrap our heads around, because that's not the way that we treat human beings. So looking at it and getting it from her perspective, like, there's no way to really empathize with her on how she looks at these people and how she wants to treat them. And like, the only reason why she isn't treating them worse is because she's like, all right, I need these people to see my son as legitimate, and the only way that they'll see my son as legitimate is if I go and talk to this idiot High Sparrow that they decided to elect. So I can't do with them what I would normally do, which is beat them up and kill them and tell them to get the hell out of my city.
But I don't think that Cersei's reaction is indicative of the way that all the other highborn act. Like, for example, first we have the example of Edmure Tully, who lets in all of his smallfolk. He lets in all the people into his own keep to protect them. That's his lord being beholden to his vassals and protecting them. Then in this very same book, we have Brienne's reactions and the sympathy she feels for the smallfolk as she goes around and sees all of their suffering. And then after that, we also see even Randall Tarly. Randall Tarly's a giant douchebag, but he's forcing his knights and his soldiers to build up these camps for the small folk to live in and rebuild the cities that have been destroyed by the Lannister armies. And we even see from Cersei's own brother, Jaime, that he feels sympathy for the small folk. So Cersei just really doesn't have the ability to sympathize with the plight of these small folk, and at the same time she fails to realize how it's not only just that this is filthy and she feels that they're lowly, it completely escapes her the whole political narrative that having all of these poor people around this strong religious symbol in all the bones at the feet of Baelor the Blessed is incredibly damning for the image of the crown.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand that. I mean, I do recognize that, yes, not everyone who is an aristocrat views poor people or people who aren't in the nobility in that particular way. But I'm just trying to make the example that because partially of the way that she was raised, this kind of there's a disconnect for her because she's never really had to be amongst any of these people to begin with. So, remember, think about it, being the Lord, right? And being having to go out on the front lines and actually having to see and live this stuff, and possibly maybe, your mother and father or whoever fostered you, gave you these morals during your upbringing about, what you must do in order to maintain your status and not have your people rebel against you, or even possibly to get other people to help overthrow you. There's a difference there with that versus being someone who's never actually had to deal with that on a personal level. So, for her, where Jaime was out on the front lines and actually having to fight, and remember him being part of the King's being part of the Kingsguard when they had to go against the Kingswood Brotherhood. Remember, the Kingswood Brotherhood at first, the small folk didn't want to help the Kingsguard. It wasn't until the older members of the Kingsguard said, "Okay, we need to get these people on our side so we can defeat the outlaws," and that. I'm pretty sure was something that impressed upon Jaime. Okay, just because these people are not part of the noble class, this is the way to keep them peaceable and to be able to help my cause when it's needed. So you're gonna have certain people who are going to pick up on that, and then there's going to be other people who either A, are never going to get that point because they just don't care, or B, they've never seen it for themselves, so they don't have a particular frame of reference. The only frame of reference that they have is them looking down on all these people and thinking, "Oh shit, at least that's not me." But then when you actually have to face it, it's a totally different story.
Well, one thing, Kraken in the house, I noticed in the chat, Chloe brought up a good point, and it's to kind of piggyback off of what Don Willie just said. Cersei arms these people. She arms these people, and like she doesn't even really know how to deal with them. She doesn't even know what they're capable of, and all of a sudden she gives them weapons and rights and all of these things. And then maybe that was a little premature, but I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, she looks down, on it, and does it really surprise anyone? Because a lot of people like to laugh at it, but it is true when she says she inherited the mind of Tywin Lannister, because he looked down on commoners the exact same way. I mean, he undid all of the, everything that Egg from Duncan Egg, all the, rules he changed to give more power to the commoners. Tywin just undid all of that. He's like, huh? What? Commoners? No. Get rid of it. Like, so is it any surprise that Cersei becomes the same level of sociopath that Tywin was?
I mean, it's not surprising. Just real quick, I'll just relate this back to the different experiences between Jaime, Cersei, and Tywin. Remember, Tywin was coming from the whole mindset of he wanted to be respected by the people who are on his level and below, right? And for him, because of him trying to escape the image of what his father had done to the house, it made him a lot more ruthless. So this way, when you have stuff and it's like, okay, well, no, commoners aren't supposed to be able to talk back to nobles. They're not supposed to be able to do this, that, and the third. Oh man, did this one king did that? No. We gotta set things back to the way that they're supposed to be. And because you have Cersei, who's trying to take more of that example than anything else, she has that mindset from Tywin that anyone who's not, on your level is beneath you. So, that's the thing that I'm saying in terms of it's not even just that that she can't feel empathy for them because she's not in a situation. She's been taught that these people are beneath her, and she's never had to deal with them on a one-on-one level. If she was sent as a little girl on missions, like with Septas or whatever to go out and feed the poor, you might be looking at a totally different Cersei. But she wasn't, as far as we know, she wasn't ever sent out to go do those kinds of things.
Yeah, like it's like almost like in real life, the rich and the famous probably look down on us, because we're common people. We're the middle class. And it's like if I was raised rich, filthy rich, I'd probably be a different person. I'd probably be an arrogant asshole, And it's like when Eliana mentioned Edmure, that's probably a rarity. Most of these lords are probably, look down on the common folk and the small folk like they're nothing,
But Edmure's not a rarity because, again, Edmure, Randall Tarley, Jaime, Brienne. Then you also have the Tyrells who mingle constantly amongst the small folk in King's Landing, and that's why they're so loved.
And the Starks as well.
Yeah, the Starks. Ned Stark was always bringing in his people to meet them. He's bringing in lords. He's bringing in people around his house, but it's not a rarity.
No. But what I'm saying is, you're making a wait. Hold on. You're making a good point. But if you count all the great houses and all the houses all over Westeros, a majority of them are probably the other way. If you do the math, there's probably outnumbered by people who are that way. Like Cersei.
I would say the opposite. I would say if you do the math, just what we see, if you take the sample size we did and extrapolate it, I would say it's probably most people at least they might not be able to help the small folks the way they should, and the commoners the way they should, but at least they can generally sympathize, at least in times of crisis.
Well, George modeled... Sorry.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, George models this after real history, and if you look at real history, the majority of kingdoms didn't care for their small folk.
I mean, yeah, but it's just we're thinking also, these are the great houses. They're living much better. Even some of the lower houses, mountain clans, etc., they're not living that much better than the small folk, and they have to be much more in touch with them. I don't think that Cersei's viewpoint is indicative of all the rest of the nobility, and I just think I think that her underestimating those who are lower born than her, it obviously comes back to bite her in the ass when she rearms the Faith militant.
I think it's not indicative of being rich or poor. I think that's indicative of who raises you, who your parents are, what you've been taught. And her mother died when she was very young, and we've clearly seen that Joanna was the warm, caring influence in the family, while Tywin was the sociopath. And she clearly was, they've always said that Jaime was not really like the father. He was more like Joanna or like Gerion, I don't know, how do you pronounce it? Well, one of the uncles, that they said that he was more like him, more his style. And we've heard that he was very kind to Tyrion and that would talk to him and teach him stuff. But she was clearly already inclined towards not Tywin's mind, but the way that his arrogance, his pride, and then she was left all alone with just Tywin as the person that taught her. And that's what she wants to be, like Tywin. So she learned all the wrong lessons and didn't learn any of the good ones. And we just have a sociopathic lady that thinks herself that she's the queen of the queens, because Tyrion isn't like that either. Tyrion is completely different, and Jaime is not like that either. It's just that, who raised you? The Starks are not that way, but Ned and Catelyn Stark were not cruel people. They were warm people, kind people that taught them, good things. Jon Arryn wasn't like that as well, with what we've heard. But how is his son? But who raised that son? The mother was also a crazy-ass bitch, an arrogant bitch. Well, she's the one, and how is he? Because the one who raised him and has all the influence is the mother.
I'm going to think it's probably more genetic than who raised you. Like, I mean, if you look at, like, just take a look at here. We have Jaime, he's like Joanna. Cersei, like Tywin, and then you got Tyrion, who's kind of a mix of both. So, and they were all kind of raised pretty similar. It's just some got different blend of the parents.
Yes, but
sorry.
I mean, it's only genetics. We've already heard that Jaime was in a way a bit of a disappointment to Tywin. The ways that he was not the same way that Tywin was supposed to be like. So he suffered under Tywin, while Cersei was always being told, "You're going to be a queen. You're going to be a queen. You're going to be a queen." Tyrion clearly suffered under Tywin. So they knew suffering. They understood what it was like for someone of power to treat you badly. The way that you feel towards how you've been taught also, teaches you a lot. Tyrion was, so understanding and so compassionate because he'd suffered. He understood what that pain was and all that stuff was. Cersei never understood that because she was the little princess, the one that was going to be married to be queen, the one that was pampered, the one that was... Jaime was always the one who never reached Tywin's expectations and felt the bitterness and resentment towards that control and that teaching.
But that didn't happen until later with Jaime. Jaime didn't get wasn't disappointment until like later when he joined the... that was way beyond his formative years.
We're never really over our formative years.
I don't... Sorry, I was just going to compare... Tinker said go ahead, Healthy, so I'm waiting for Healthy to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think Cersei could have saw this High Sparrow coming in no scenario. She thought that she could manipulate this guy. She's going over here thinking she could, just control another one. And there's no way she would ever saw this coming. What happened?
Thank you, LT, because that is putting us back on track to the remaining of the conversation. And yeah, indeed, Cersei thinks that he was elected by the most devout. I'm going a little bit out of order of chapter right now, but which we know is not the case, and she will learn that, I think, later. I don't want to say something stupid by Qyburn. I'm reading from the wiki. So as the previous High Septon is slain, the most devout begin the selection process to see... Sorry, I'm confused by the chat. The most devout begin the selection process to see who of them will become the new High Septon, the way it's supposed to be. According to Qyburn, the Sparrows forcibly took over the selection process. They burst into the chambers with axes in hand, and their leader, the small Septon on their shoulder, the most devout, relent in fear and name him the High Septon. So it's she could not have been prepared for that. That's a case that had not happened in 200 years. So that's really something like the election of that guy throws the entire. I still cannot say that word. Yeah, hierarchy.
Anarchy.
Yeah,
They say
system.
anarchy or hierarchy?
Well,
Hierarchy.
yeah, system of the faith. So it was not expected, and that's why she is so like shocked. She walks in. She asks for the people she knows. They're nowhere to be found. And then there's one who is scrubbing the floor. And that's not, she wouldn't, I mean, like, she would never have imagined that guy doing that because he used to be always dressed very well and act like someone from the nobility. And he's just there in rough spun scrubbing the floor. And then the other one, Septon Torbert, she asked where he is. And she said, I do need to see my friend Septon Torbert. And someone replies, Septon Torbert has been confined to a penitent cell on bread and water. It is sinful for any man to be so plump when half the realm is starving. So it's really like, that is a shock. That is a shock for everyone. And what's crazy is that, what is more crazy is that Cersei has been, for the 5 previous chapters, so like centered on her tiny scheming of, oh my god, the Tyrells are trying to take over my son and take away my power, that she has been totally oblivious to that huge upheaval happening right next door to her.
I mean, you're saying that there's no way she could. I disagree completely on that, because if she would have had if she came in here unprepared, if she would have.
No, that's what I said. Yeah.
If she would have had someone come in, if she would have actually appointed a decent master of whisperers instead of just picking Qyburn, she might have actually had someone that could have gone and got intel for her, reported back, and then she could have had an actual plan instead of just coming in here, like a bull in a china cabinet.
I think Qyburn is a really good master of whisper, but I think he's not a very loyal master of whisper. But that could be a discussion for later or for another time.
Well, whether
Also,
he's good or not,
Cersei, a plan, an actual decent plan. Are we talking about the same Cersei?
All she needs is 20 good men.
20 good men.
So
and make sure that what really confused me is that all the axes and swords and everything and armor, I thought they were just in robes and billy clubs. I don't get it.
These aren't the show High Sparrows. These are warrior sons.
yeah, but I mean, like you're talking about, Master of Whisper giving her intel, but just if she left the Red Keep once in a while, she could just see them. The Sparrows are everywhere. It's not like it wasn't a secret coup. The Sparrows are everywhere. She just never leaves the Red Keep.
Ooh, yeah, I got a question for everybody real quick. Do you think in all this time, because I've always wondered this, where freaking Varys is all around when this is happening and Death of Dragon time, do you think Varys is just listening and laughing his ass off? Right? He probably is.
Probably. See, what I think Varys did, I think he put a copy of Game of Thrones Season 6 in Cersei's room and had her watch that, and she's like, oh, they just have billy clubs and ropes? That's it? Well, I'll just go in myself right now. No worry.
Me and Don Willie just literally spit out our drinks at the same time. Thank you, Jerry. That was great.
So anyway, there's that beginning of the conversation between Cersei and the High Sparrow, where it's basically again like a lot of info dump on like me, High Septon, what are my values, like what do I want. So we learned that in prisons, higher members of the faith were not devout enough, that he sold his crown, that now he has everybody, like he wants everybody to be equal in the faith, no more the word I cannot pronounce, and that work is what makes you great, and that everyone has to work. So obviously, feel free to throw in any comparison with the Catholic Church there and all the different movement and upheaval, but that's very much a political commentary. Anyone want to comment on that? No.
I mean,
Oh, my bad.
you know what, LT, go first. Go
No,
ahead.
no. I was just gonna ask because I had to get up and I thought somebody was knocking at the door, but I guess I'm hearing things, so I missed what we were talking about. I apologize.
No, I was saying that the beginning of discussion between Cersei and High Septon before they start negotiating, it's pretty much High Septon like laying for his values. They're like just replacing what was before, and that he think the way the faith was before was corrupt and not in touch with the real values of the church, and that is a commentary on the Catholic Church. And I was asking you guys if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I don't know if that's commentary in the Catholic Church. I don't really have anything to say about that part. I just think the High Sparrow came in there, and he, like I said, he came in like freaking Walter, and he just looked around and said, you know, am I the only one who cares about the damn rules around here? And,
Yeah.
I know that in his Blood of the Conqueror series, Jeff breaks down some of those similarities. I don't really know. I didn't do the whole history thing, but about how there's a lot of parallels, I guess, between how the faith of the Seven starts becoming more corrupt and the asking for. There are words and they're just not coming to my head right now. Not tithes.
Offering?
It's like offering. I forgot. There was a specific word, and you could buy your way into heaven.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. I can't think
yeah,
of it
right?
either.
Right.
Another word in French.
fighting and stuff?
What's the word in French? Maybe it's
Okay.
similar.
Yeah.
Is it gone for
oh,
you too
good
now?
God, now I forgot the word in French.
Okay, great. I made everyone forget the word. So, yeah, but like, you know, the corruption that starts spreading through the Catholic Church, and then because of that, the Protestant like Reformation, or like in response, and how you see that split between the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church forming, and he talks about how that's what happened when the Sparrows took over and did the revolution of the faith.
Okay, in French, it's indulgence.
That might have been what it was called. I don't.
Yes, indulgence. I've looked it up.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, indulgence in English too.
Good job,
Wikipedia
team.
is good. Good job, Wikipedia. Thank you.
You also find out that like all the higher ranking officials were kind of living a little too life of luxurious here compared to, and it was mainly people, you know, the commoners and people, the other parts of the church, the lower parts of the church that were like, you know, putting them up. They had a crystal crown. They're eating a lot. They were, you know, etc.
Yeah.
Very much like the Catholic Church, but it's just, I don't know. There's a way of that he does things that I don't believe that he's doing this out of like real faith. Like, you know, he, you know, those that were up, there were quite a few that were up, and they were all indulging. They were all corrupt. But they had influence. You know, when one is corrupt, everyone kind of has a bit of power because clearly, you know, you're all dodgy. So they're like, everyone has a way of like, oh, you get this and this. And there's always kind of like a bartering, you know. The power is a bit more spread up between the guys who are all on top. But in a way, you know, I don't think if you're a real true believer, you believe in tolerance and you don't force your faith onto others, which he's clearly doing. He's torturing, he's making them suffer. This is not a devout man that believes in mercy, because he contradicts himself constantly with his actions, no matter what bullshit he kind of says. But by making himself like dress in rags, selling all those kind of stuff, while he is in a way throwing away and selling the riches, he's gaining more power because he's putting everyone else at the same level except himself, because he's still the High Sparrow. He still has power, but all the rest have lost all their power, and by not being outwardly corrupt with money and jewels and sex and all the other kind of stuff that they've kind of lost it. No one else has kind of had like a grasp on him. So he's the only one that really has any power in this whole system. But since he doesn't have anything outwardly that they can play with him, he actually looks like a holy man. So not only does he have more power in like the literal sense, the belief that they have in him makes him even more powerful. So he's in a way bartered all of the riches and stuff, whatever, for an amount of power that the others didn't have. And I'm certain that he's not starving himself. So he's still in a secure place, living, in the church and secured with people that are protecting him. He just doesn't have fancy robes and a fancy crown. But in a way, he's gaining more and more and more for himself. And the way everything that he doesn't get with jewels and stuff, he gets other way. He's getting other people to do his bidding. He has people that worship him. He's like, this is not a man who's doing things that really wants to change because he wants to change. Like the Pope that we have, there's now, he's clearly a man that is, he said, oh, these shoes are ridiculously expensive. I'm not, he's done changes little by little. He says some things. But he hasn't really like tried to force his way on other people. He genuinely wants to help and genuinely wants to bring the church, in a different way that is, better, less superficial, less, hypocritical. They're not allowing him to do that much because he's only one man and he cannot tear down the system down. And let's see how much he can do. But he's clearly a man who believes what he's saying. He's coherent with what he says. Well, this man looks like he's, coherent, but the amount of power that he's gaining and the amount, what he's getting from his followers, like, this is not a man who's doing it out of faith. I believe that he's a man, I think that he's much more intelligent than Jerry thinks. And I think he knows very well what he's doing. I think he knows very well what he's doing and he has a plan. And I don't think, and I think that his plan from the very beginning was exactly what he got.
Yeah, no, I know. I can't. We're gonna talk about that like right now. But I can't believe, he seems to be the same guy the same Septon that Brienne stumbles across next to. Okay, I'm going to have to go back to Wiki there. Next to Rosby. And could be the same guy. But yeah, I
Maribald? With
no,
dog?
No, not Septon.
Oh.
No, not Septon Maribald. On the Rosby Road, Brienne of Tarth spots a group of sparrows led by a Septon with feet that are, quote, bare and black, gnarled and hard as tree roots. And lean face, gray-brown hair, was going to King's Landings with bones of Septons killed in the Riverlands. So it seems to be the same person who then arrives there. So, but not, it's an unnamed Septon. So yeah, I mean, like, again, sorry, quoting from the wiki, but they say little is known of the history of the current High Septon. He claims to have been a Septon who walked all over the realm. His heavily calloused feet support this claim. They are black, gnarled, and hard as tree roots. So that's the quote that is similar. He often came upon villages that were too small to have their own sept and performed the traditional duties of a septon, such as naming newborn children, absolving sins, and performing marriage. So yeah, like a wandering septon, much like Septon Maribald, except not as cool and very mean. But I'm like, as we're gonna see, and as you guys have seen reading that chapter, like the way the conversation goes, yes, Cersei is silly, but the way he manipulates her and the arguments he uses and the way he reaches his goal, like, I can't help but think, like, I'm not on the whole and read High Sparrow train. I think that's silly, but, like, he's obviously not a man of humble birth. Like, we have a few POVs of, small folks. Well, although like if you're a Septon, I guess you get a little bit of education, but we have Pate's POV, who's also someone getting education, and okay, granted, Pete can be silly and that guy can be very smart, but he has, I can't help but think that he's a secret something. Like,
I want to push back on that just because I don't like the idea of the High Sparrow having to be someone. I mean, maybe he is in it for the power, but I like the idea that he's common-born, and that he isn't necessarily highborn. One of the things that he says to Cersei is like, the promise for us putting down our arms that King Jaehaerys made to us is that the crown would always protect us. Now that deal was brokered because King Jaehaerys knew how to pick his negotiators and his political allies. That deal was brokered by a Septon because Jaehaerys knew how to ally himself with the faith. So he sent his hand to the king, Septon Barth, who was incredibly brilliant. He was very smart, and Septon Barth was common-born. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the High Sparrow himself is someone who is lowborn, who maybe I don't know what his intentions are, if they're pure or not, but could genuinely want to amass power in order to do some sort of change or whatever. But just because he has the ability to read, write, and strategize, I think, and have his own motivations, doesn't mean he has to be someone highborn and secretly so.
Okay, and I will agree with the highborn, because again, you can be lowborn and educated. I probably didn't phrase that correctly, but that I think that for a long time he has been someone with a mission. That not just someone who stumbled and not someone pushed by the events. Someone with a clear mission.
I agree with both. I actually am convinced that he's lowborn, because a lot of the things that he does, it just, at least I've got nothing to back this up. This is just a feeling for what I read when I read up with him. And I get the feeling that he really hates the highborn. And that all the things that I've seen happen to the lowborn make him angrier, and I think he hides that, but I think it's also part of the reason why he kind of strips himself from all the jewels and stuff. I think that he sees it not because of like religion and stuff, but because of the hate that he has to the highborn, and it's a way of making himself more powerful. He doesn't feel that he's dependent of all of those jewels and clothes and stuff. He doesn't need them to have power, and I think that one of his missions is to kind of take them down, because what he did to Cersei, apart from just shaming her as a woman, and religion has had a way, has hated women a lot. Like seriously, in religion, we're the ones that will always get screwed. In like practically every single one of them, maybe not all of them, but come on, in many we're the ones who get screwed. The ones who really it really hurt royalty and nobility in general, because their clothes, their jewels, their hairs and stuff separates them from the lowborn. They make them look more powerful, more glamorous, different, like they are separate. By tearing all of that down during the walk of shame, it made all of the lowborn were no longer afraid of her. They were okay with shaming her, with disgracing her, with looking her badly. And it kind of took some of the power from the highborn away when he did that.
Obviously, he is a secret Targaryen. He's one of Aerys' two bastard kids.
Nonsense, Jerry, nonsense.
And Cersei's a secret Targaryen. This is a meeting of two secret Targaryens that they don't even know it.
You know what I would like to see, honestly? Because, just think about it. I mean, all right, so say the crown pays him the 900,000 golden dragons. I'd like to see how he responds then, because money corrupts people, even the most, noblest people. And I wonder if this dude gets corrupted if he eventually does come into money.
Well, that's why, I mean, he sold his crown to feed the poor. So that's why I think he's after something else than money.
Yeah, and then he mentions, when he mentions, you mentioned a minute ago about protecting the faith, and he mentions, the Northerners and no, I'm sorry. Cersei blames it on the Northerners as Stannis, and then she said even Lannisters did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, then, like, their conversation is one Cersei burn after another. Like, she says, can you do something for, like the dirt? Because, it's kind of marble, it's nice, so don't let your dirty sparrows hang, please put them somewhere. And like, then he comes back with that, like, sick burn, like, night soil can be washed away more easily than blood, your grace. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still like I hate him, but like no one tells it to Cersei the way it is as well as that guy does.
I just can't help but laugh too when she says in her mind, she says, "He doesn't think I'm gonna kneel, does he? He doesn't know me."
You don't know me. You're not my mom.
Yeah, so yeah, they try to, and again, the same way like Taina always managed to like incept ideas into Cersei's brain. Like she's not that smart, but he leads her exactly where he wants. So maybe like I don't know if you want to talk more about it, that's where they, like Cersei wants to send the Sparrows away, and they are nowhere to go. And that's where he says, most have lost their home, suffering is everywhere, and grief and death. Before coming to King's Landing, I tended to 100 little villages, too small to have a Septon of their own. I walked from each one to the next. Yeah, well, anyway, that's what I was talking about. But like, yeah, what you were saying about they have nowhere else to go, that LT mentioned earlier.
Well,
losing their identity.
Well, this kind of brings me back to the whole thing I was saying earlier about, her view on small folk. And like for her, this is kind of an inconvenience because she just wants the political legitimacy of Tommen, right? So she's just like, look, I'll give him some stuff because, everybody wants something. I'll give him things that to me are insignificant, but to him are, might mean the world. If it'll just get him to perform this religious ceremony, and if he'll just get rid of these sparrows, and then I can go back to, living life the way that it should be. So with the whole thing of asking for forgiveness of the crown's debts and talking about how she'll reverse the laws of Maegor and reintroduce the warrior sons and all that stuff. For her, it's a minor thing because she's not seeing the bigger picture that you've already got all these sparrows, not only in King's Landing, but they're all around the Seven Kingdoms now. And you just given them basically free reign to go and commit violence, and she's not thinking about it that way. She's just like, oh, well, no, they want my soldiers to come and protect them, but fuck that. I'm not going to use my soldiers to go and protect these lowly people. Let them do it themselves. Okay, fine. The law says you can't, that you can't do it. Fine, I'll change the law, but in exchange for me changing the law, you got to forgive the debt because I already got the Iron Bank talking their bullshit about how they want their money back, and the crown actually owes my family. So you know what? I can always forgive the debt on my family, but I'm gonna have to worry about the Iron Bank sooner or later. But as long as I can not have them breathing down my neck for right now, and I can get rid of you guys, cool, everything will be fine. And not even realizing like Maegor made those laws for a reason. Maegor, as much as you might want to call him a tyrant, he had good reason to make those laws against the faith taking arms. Because look at what happens later on. You really can't have this kind of civilian religious militia going around and kind of enforcing their will upon people, because the moment that they run across someone who doesn't have their same ideals and they start torturing them, beating them up, not only can you not really prosecute them for committing a crime, but you're also going to have a number of people who might think that they did the right thing. So she doesn't even realize the catch-22 that she's putting the whole realm in, just by overturning this particular rule of Maegor.
But again, it's because he so masterfully brings her there. That's what I love. He's like, first he mentions very innocently, Jairus, and his law, saying that he swore that the Iron Throne was supposed to protect the faith, and then Cersei had no idea what Jairus, the council leader, might have sworn. That after seeing us earlier that Pycelle had given her tedious lessons about the faith, still she had not listened. Typical Cersei. So he's trapping her in that conversation, like she cannot escape. Then he says the realm is full of kings. For the faith to exalt one above the rest must be certain. And Cersei goes like, no, but my son is the only one who protects the faith. And he says, oh, but how does he? See, the Septons are raped, the Septons are murdered, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, oh no, but give your blessing to Tommen and we will help you. We will help you. And then he goes on to saying, but it's not possible. How could you do that? How do you pretend to do that? And then there she sleeps. Well, why can't you protect yourself? Because Maegor's law prohibits that. And then he has her right where he wants her, and she has she ends up saying Tommen is king now, not Maegor. But it's he brought her there, he funneled her to that line of thought.
I mean, he did funnel her, but he also at the same point time, that's kind of a pretty artful like a sales negotiation. But when you're doing that, you never expect them to go with the one that's most beneficial to you, which is what Cersei did. He was getting there to be like, okay, you can either arm us or you can just pay us back. And he was expecting Cersei to say, well, okay, fine, here, we will help you. You'll gain more. I mean, that's how negotiation works. Cersei did the exact opposite of what you would expect and said, here you go. And he's just like, he probably spit his. If he had water in his mouth, he would have spit it out the way Don Willie did earlier, and been like, "Oh, okay, thanks. That's even more than I was hoping for."
Yeah. I don't believe so. I believe
wild cards.
I believe that he knew what he was doing. I think the fact that she's terribly in debt is it's just everyone knows she owes debts to bloody everyone. And she's an arrogant bitch. Everyone, it's no secret right now. We're in the fourth book. By now, her character, who she is, how she acts, everything about her just clearly gives it away. She thinks that they're nobody. She doesn't even realizing that what she's doing is creating an army. It never even crosses through her mind. And 900,000 dragons is a lot of money that she doesn't have. He's clearly guiding. You're saying Maegor's lost. Maegor, he says it twice.
Yeah,
He-
Jerry's,
he-
Maegor.
the way he controls that conversation, the way that he's clearly guiding her to it. He doesn't care about the money. He doesn't care at all about the money. He doesn't want that money. He wants to have the power. I think it's so clear in the way King Maegor laws prohibit that, as your grace must know, it was by his degrees. And then Tommen is king now, no Maegor. Like, it's just, they can be undone. It's just the way that he controls that conversation. This is not a Sullen pitch. This is a master manipulator playing puppeteer with an idiot, arrogant woman that thinks that she knows what she's doing.
But just because you're manipulating someone doesn't mean that's the outcome you're expecting. Like, here's one thing. Take it from someone who does predictions for a living. You cannot predict crazy. It's impossible to do.
Bitches.
The High Sparrow is secretly Littlefinger.
You know what? Does anyone think that the High Sparrow could possibly be a plant from somewhere in the east?
No, he's secretly Littlefinger. It's this double identity.
Yeah, but we were discussing earlier, like, we think that is not a plan for Littlefinger. Is that Littlefinger is surprised about how quickly everything goes to shit for Cersei. So that's why. But from the east, interesting.
Even Littlefinger was surprised. What does that tell you?
I don't think so. Not only that, it wouldn't benefit Littlefinger because Littlefinger eventually wants to get to that throne by putting someone in it or getting his ass on it, and then he would have to freaking deal with the Fae. This is a problem that he doesn't want, and Cersei's not capable of dealing with them. So whoever eventually inherits the throne is going to have to deal with the mess that she's made. So it's not really in this. Everyone who wants the throne, the moment they heard about it, they're like, "Oh, you idiot!"
So who were you thinking now, Wally? Because that's your idea.
I mean, could be a plant from either the Iron Bank or maybe even the Faceless Men. I mean, because think about it like this, they're right now trying to squeeze Cersei, from all sides, and someone from Westeros, you have to figure out like who would gain the most from Cersei basically being under siege in the capital like that, right? And as far as we know, no one else other than Littlefinger. And we've already agreed that Littlefinger seems to be shocked by this turn of events, so Littlefinger can't be the one manipulating this particular part. No one else has come forward and kind of rub their hands together and be like, yes, my plant has finally worked. No one else has given any hint that, this is a great thing that Cersei has done. But we haven't gotten a perspective from the East yet, so there could be someone from the East who has a plant. Who knows? It might even be a plant by Varys.
Yeah, I mean, Kraken says Illyrio, which makes sense, because he would know what Aegon at what point is.
But at the same time, if it's someone who wants the throne, eventually they would inherit the problem. It took a long time to get the faith militants back under control the first time around. Once you've opened the Pandora's box, it's going to be a very hard to put it back in. It's not going to be that. I think he's his own man. I don't think that everything has to be a secret plot from somewhere else. Sometimes there are actions and then they create consequences. And I think that the war has caused this man, who was already an angry man who'd seen a lot of unfairity and just wanted power to change things. And I think they just gave him the opportunity. I don't think that there's anyone behind, because he's not doing anything that will favor anyone in power. He's quite doing a lot of things that will not be good for people in power. So I just don't see that.
I agree
There's
with all
always
that.
secret plot.
I agree with all that, but also just like I think it's important that this be just its own separate play for power on the part of the faith, because I think it's really important that we have, we have a perspective of small folk with ambitions. Like we have Davos, but all he wants to do is serve Stannis, and like that's his ambition. It's still in the service of nobility. Whereas I think it's interesting to see what small folk themselves might desire from the nobles who are supposed to be holding up their end of the bargain as their lords, but also like it goes back to Varys's riddle in A Clash of Kings, which is, there's a priest, there's a king, and
Warrior?
no, it was priest, king, merchant, priest, king, merchant, and each of them says to the sellsword, "Fight for me." And who does the sellsword pick? And I think that the merchant, while it's not necessarily like foreshadowing, but we can interpret it as like the merchant being like Illyrio, and the king being all these various kings. To whom do you swear your loyalty when you believe that power flows through blood? And then finally, the kind of person who believes that power flows from above, from the divine? And that's why I think that the High Sparrow needs to be his own faction, not serving any other person's agenda.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just a representation of religious fanaticism. He pretty much takes over in a fanatical way, and it puts in fanatical policies, and he's just fanatic. It's basically the best way to describe him. And I think, I think he was fairly, at least maybe he might have started out at least, kind of as a genuine fanatic. But I think as he's rising up, power is corrupting him ever so much.
Does anybody? Sorry.
Well, ask your question, but
No, go ahead. It's fine.
it was just for what Eliana was saying. Okay, he's his own man. We agree he's very smart and he has a plan. We agree on that. So what's his goal? Because, I'm sorry, we're getting away from the scope of the chapter there, but okay, so he puts Cersei like out of the way. Then Tommen and Margaery are ruling, but he's imprisoned Margaery and shamed her. Like, isn't he afraid that just strong Tyrell army, like that he's crossed a line that might bring repercussion to him and the faith? No? Anyone?
I think that arrogance and pride is very dangerous. We've seen it in these books. And I think that, he's managed to shame the Queen Regent, stripped her of all power. He's managed to imprison another one. He's managed to get his army. Like, everything has gone exactly the way that he wanted it to go. And sometimes you're blind, even if you're not a highborn, like pride, arrogance, that's in every single person. And when so many things go in your favor and you're outsmarting and outplaying the people that should have absolute and ultimate power, I think that, and things are so bad because, by this point, things are still shit outside. And things are still a mess for everyone. It's not like it's peacetime and it's going to be easy to just mobilize the entire army and come to fight all of the little sparrows and whatever. And let's also realize that the faith is really everywhere. It's in every single person. Not only that, their armies are made out of the people in their... it's not made only of there's only so many nobles. The majority of them are peasants, are the lower people. So I think that he's feeling very much in control and very much in power. And he's just kind of losing... I think that, I think that he's just getting too confident in his power, in that he can do what he wants and that he can manipulate and use them. And now that he's shamed Cersei, that I think he thinks that he's got them.
So you think
And then,
that his goal?
Let's
Sorry.
go for it.
So you think that his goal, to use that infamous quote, is to break the will?
Well, maybe not break the will, but maybe lessen the power of the nobles, and use and have the faith be the ultimate power. I think he wants the faith to be on top again, to be on top of the nobles, and for them to be, instead of the faith serving the houses and the royalty and stuff, them serving the faith.
I mean, as much as I hate to bring up the show, the High Sparrow kind of did make a point about, that they are the many and that the nobles are the few, and he was like, and when the many decide to overthrow the few, and then he just kind of left it there, up to your interpretation. But it was really him saying, look, you guys don't have as many people as we do. And the moment that you really try to attack us, especially when we're the ones who are out here trying to protect the people that you are supposed to be protecting and haven't done anything for, you can't be surprised when the masses rise up against you. And I think that's his whole play here, is that, he's able to do the things that he's done to the nobles because he pretty much has the city on lockdown. It's pretty much the Sparrows, versus the nobles, and the Sparrows probably outnumber the nobles by 2 or 3 to 1 inside of the city. So, really, what are they going to do about it?
Well, I mean, I've said this guy is a fanatic, and that, that's why. And that power, I think his plan is ever evolving. Like, it's not like a static plan that he's had this whole time, and he's hitting plot point B, plot point A. I think as time is going on, he's becoming more and more he's taking his fanaticism not only to a new level, but also thinking he can accomplish more than he ever had planned to. At first I think he came and started to shape up the faith, wipe out the corruption, have the faith see things the way he sees it in his own fanatical way. And once he, accomplishes that, now his next goal, he's like, well, maybe if I could do that, I could make the nobles see things the way I see things, how they're supposed to be honoring the gods, honoring the faith, blah, 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 blah. And, it's just snowballing, as he's gaining more power, you go for Delty.
Does anybody actually subscribe to the theory that he's Hound Reed? I mean, No?
No, let's not talk crazy. We already got enough Cersei here.
I'm not saying I subscribe to it. I was just asking if anybody subscribes to it.
I think Cersei might, but she's the one crazy enough to.
Yeah, I have not really read a lot about that theory, but I don't see how it makes sense narratively. I'm sorry, I've probably have birthday cake all over myself, but sure, they could look alike somewhat, but how would that make sense? Given what we know of Alan Reed and what he might want, and why would he send his kids, with Bran for that, risking their life to save the realm of man from the others, and at the same time try to destabilize the kingdom when they should be united, because it's easier to gather an army if the feudal system is still in place than it is if he's just Sparrow is wandering everywhere. So that doesn't work for me. Do we have anything else to say about Cersei discussion with High Sparrow before we move on to part 3, where she leaves the Sept and goes back to beaching with Taina?
No.
No? No one? Okay. So, again, more... Part 3 starts with, again, more info then, because obviously Taina had never heard of the Warrior Sons. So we learned that there were two branches of the Holy Army. The Warrior Sons were the ones from the nobility, and the poor fellows were, sorry, the small folks that were armed for the faith. And so, yeah, first thing Stannis does to Stannis. I'm sorry, because she's talking about Stannis. First thing Cersei does to celebrate, yay! I've been so good at negotiating. I'm the best. Is drink. And I know it's ridiculous, but it's so funny to me because she's drinking Hippocras, which is a drink that is produced by Harry Garden. And every time she drinks, I can't help but think that she's mostly drinking alcohol that is producing the Reach, and that she's just feeding the economy of her perceived enemies, which is stupid. But yeah, you guys, any thoughts about the end of the chapter?
I think it's at this point where she officially passes Janos Slint as the most delusional character in the series. Because, I mean, if you all remember Slint when he's like, he thought the wildlings were running away because of him, that level of delusion, well, Cersei just passed it right here with this. I do have one more thing I want to say, but that after you have to talk about this third part. There's one question I want to bring up after.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was just because we want to... I know I've been, like, usually really long at the beginning of the chapter, and so now I'm trying to catch up to not have a video that is too long. So then Cersei, right after that, meets Margaery next to the Sept. And she starts thinking again, like she's, you know, like, oh, she's so bad, Margaery's so evil. But there again, I think we have a third comparison between Margaery and Rhaenys Targaryen, when in the chapter when they say she gave her custom to a dozen different seamstress, blah, 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 blah. She was forever giving alms to beggars, buying hot pies of bakers' carts, and reining up to speak to common tradesmen. Had it been up to her, she would have had Tommen doing all those things as well. And in the world of Ice and Fire, they say, as the city and its prosperity grew, so did that of the realm. This was in part due to the conqueror's effort to win the respect of his vassals and that of the small folks. In this, he was often aided by Queen Rhaenys while she lived, for whom the small folk were of special concern. She was a patron, that I've quoted before, for the singers. So, yeah, again, Margaery really, really annoys Cersei, but is acting like a good queen.
Listen, at the end of the day, Cersei is plotting and trying to figure out, how can I use this against against Margaery, and not thinking about the ways that it could possibly backfire on herself. And it's just like, oh, come on now, there's no point in which you're thinking, all right, well, I had to give up a bunch of stuff in order to get this High Sparrow to do what I want him to do. And he still hasn't even done it yet. He hasn't even blessed Tommen yet. There hasn't been a particular date given. He's just like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do these things, but here's what I want in return, and not realizing that she's actually given up a lot more than she's gotten. Because, all right, money. All right, fine. any noble house can actually really feed the poor. The faith doesn't actually need the money for that. You know, the nobility can't do that, and really that's their job. Um, but she's just like, all right, well, cool. I just got all of this great stuff, and how can I use it to crush my enemies, because I can't have the Tyrells gaining any more power. And you know, look, we see how it comes to bite her back in the ass later on, but you know, whatever. She's a loser, but I do like the info dump that we get here, and you know, just the little bit of history that that we didn't really get in any other chapters. So you know, that was cool.
Yeah, no, I like it too.
I do find it kind of funny here how Margaery comes and she's just pretty much says all the right things, says all the right, you know, everything, and you Cersei, she just like she might as well just turn like pale and coarse because of how salty she's getting right now with this here. She's just everything she's coming back, everything she replies is extremely rude, extremely transparent, extremely. I mean, I know I called her the mind of Tywin earlier, but here even Tywin is not this bad at being so transparent.
She's kind of like a troll, you know. She says, she's like, oh, Margaery doesn't even know that she was burned because she's just saying mean things so that she can get a reaction out of her. But then Margaery's just like, no, I'm not playing that game. I'm just gonna be like a normal person.
Yeah, I know. I love. I have no time for writing. We were talking about their conversation, right?
I think so.
I have no time for riding through the woods and picking flowers, Cersei said. I have a kingdom to rule. And I'm, in her mind, she was like, burn, burn. And then Margaery replies, only one, your grace? Who rules the other 6? And that's great.
I also found it very funny when she's talking to Tommen, and Tommen has clearly been influenced by the Tyrells. And it's funny because the influence that they're having on him is good influence. You know, he's starting to have ideas, he's starting to think, good ideas about talking with the club, and she's trying to squash all the good that the Tyrells are doing. And there's a moment in which she thinks, is like, oh, he's so gullible. Joffrey would not have allowed this. And you're like, are you kidding me? You've just been played, girl. You've just been played in such a terrible way. And Joffrey was not a good example. He got Ned Stark killed, which there was just a mention of that in that conversation. It started this whole bleeding war. It's just, you're like, oh, it's just, you know, you're seeing that maybe Tommen, you know, because the Tyrells, yes, they have their own thing. They want power. They want to rule. But, you know, someone has to rule in the system that they've created. Why not in that moment the Tyrells? From all of the others, they seem to actually be doing things properly. They seem to be loved by their small folks. Their small folks have food, have stuff. They, you know, they do things well. They're not cruel, arrogant bastards the way that the Lannisters are, at least the main family is. You know, so why not have, you know, Tommen would actually not be bad with Margaery as a queen. She would be a good influence. She could, like, get rid of all the bullshit that Cersei has put in. And you're seeing her, like, talk bad about them, thinking that he's a fool and ignorant and weak. And comparing to her psychopath of a son who started a bloody war and ended up having to be killed because no one could bloody control him, not even herself. And you're like, oh, seriously, it's just, how do you actually think yourself? Because not even Tywin liked Joffrey. Tywin preferred Tommen over Joffrey as well to rule. It's just so. Oh.
Well, Littlefinger started the war. Littlefinger started the war. If Littlefinger didn't poison Jon Arryn, nothing else would never happen. So Littlefinger is responsible for everything.
Yeah.
Littlefinger for king. Anyway, though.
Well, eventually something was going to happen because Varys would have started something to make way for Fagon eventually.
And not only that, but Robert getting killed wasn't like, come on, Cersei'd been dying to get him killed for bloody ages, and not only that, between all the drinking, the whoring, the food, the hunting, like the only thing they gave him was wine that was a bit stronger. Like really, he would have ended up dead soon anyways, and the moment Joffrey got into the throne, it would have been a disaster. It was, like, while Robert was alive, the realm was kind of holding on, like, barely. The moment that he was dead, and it wasn't going to take that long, and Joffrey got on the throne, shit was going to hit the fan. It was just...
Joffrey was the most gracious king ever. I love my king.
I mean, you know what was crazy? So back to the whole point of, why couldn't Cersei just let the Tyrells rule? Because, they don't deserve to rule because they're not the Lannisters.
Lions.
Yeah, it's like, oh, come on, dude. Who wants a rose flying over the city capital when you could have a lion? And at the end of the day, Cersei has this really imperious attitude that I rule and my family rules because we are supposed to, and it's just one of those things where she can't see the bigger picture. She's the one that can't see the forest for the trees, and in this case, if a tree falls down in this forest, everyone is going to hear it except for her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good metaphor. So, do we have anything to add on this chapter? I just want to say also, that that's her pride. And then there's also the Valonqar prophecy. I think they're like, I didn't realize, like, I had totally forgotten. Like, I thought, like, the Valonqar prophecy was given to us early and that then we had little reminders of it. And I just on that reread realized that, oh no, like, we have little tidbits. And then, like, it's almost at the end that we get the full thing. And we only have two here, like, just the mention of... oh my god, now I forgot Cersei's friend's name because we have no memory. Melora falling in the well, and the one about a drop of blood.
Falling or pushed?
Falling, that's what she says in the chapter. But yeah, it's I don't know. That I know that is not really something in that for that chapter, but I wanted to have your opinion. Like, I was rereading it, like, super impressed about the way George wrote that in the story. Like, I know I had told a great deal on the Bran chapter of the way, like, all the different skills George used to weave stories into story in his narrative. And I think, like, that was really good for that, because usually we're given, like, either AI, like, we're like, things are placed and then, like, we have explanations throughout. But there, like, it's the opposite. It's like a lingering dream. It's like she really is trying to forget, but more and more throughout the chapters, the, like, crazier she gets and the more desperate she gets, like, the more we have info about the prophecy, and, like, the more she can't escape it and she can't help thinking about it. Like, I know, Liana, you're not a fan of that in Cersei's arc. Do you want to tell us about it?
About why I hate the prophecy?
Yeah.
Well, I have many reasons, but mostly I just feel like the prophecy undercuts any Cersei's characterization. Like, all the things that are in there about, like, you will have this many children and they're going to die and then you will, or the idea that, Tyrion, she thinks Tyrion will kill her, or that Cersei thinks that a younger, more beautiful queen will usurp her. I don't think that these are all, like... I just feel like all these elements were already present in Cersei as a character, and they would have all come out anyway. Like, we can see that Cersei has all this internalized misogyny. Like, she is like, yeah, I wish that things were better for me, but she thinks that all the other women are stupid and terrible and dumb and less pretty than she is. And she also, like, all the things about, like, how she wasn't treated the same way as Jaime, those all existed. And then the idea that she fears for her children dying, leading to her death, I think that she already would have done that anyway, because she only loves her children as extensions of herself, because she's a narcissist. And then if her children die, then that means she loses her ability to be queen and loses that power. And finally, she already, like, hated Tyrion, and I just think all these things would have been way more compelling without a prophecy, and if we actually just dug into Cersei as a person who feels this way about things. It's just my rant about all that.
Maybe that's why they made that prophecy. They already like, oh, she told me this prophecy.
It's actually not in the original draft, apparently. Like, so Jon Snow was looking at some of the sample chapters and so forth, and in some of the first Cersei chapters, the first Feast for Crows Cersei chapters, there isn't really any mention of, like, Maggy the Frog. So this might have been a later addition to the story, and I think it was a bad addition.
I don't mind the prophecy. I've always kind of liked prophecies, and one of the things that I kind of like is always the idea that, you know, would it happen if you hadn't actually heard it? Like, is a prophecy like more like self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, she's heard this prophecy and she believes it's real so much that while you fight, like, you focus all your energy in this prophecy and on stopping the prophecy from happening. You know, she has the thing that, you know, all the women, as you say, are stupid or dumb and stuff like that. But, you know, that's because she always has this fear that a younger, more beautiful one will usurp her. That's why she was always so harsh with Sansa and then with Margaery. And she's got that fear that all her children are going to die because she believes, because, you know, a part of her doesn't want to believe this prophecy, but another part of her fears this prophecy. And the more she fights against it, the more it happens.
But she already had that internalized, like, misogyny and distrust of other women as competition when it comes to getting men's attention, which is why she kills Melara. She's like, no one can have Jaime except for me. She doesn't really want to uplift other women, just Cersei. And I just think that and she also, like I said, resented that Jaime got treated differently than her. And I just think that all these things were present without the prophecy.
True, but the prophecy makes it stronger or makes the obsession greater. Like, Jaime, we already knew that they were twins and there was already something kind of going on with that. So the fact that she wouldn't want anyone else to pay attention to her, that's true, but that wouldn't mean that she would automatically dislike every other woman if they weren't actually looking at Jaime. We don't know that. We haven't seen that. That was a reaction to her wanting Jaime. And the obsession about the kids, how everyone wants her kids dead. Like, one thing is to fear them, one thing is to think that they're all going to die at one moment or another. And the fear with Tyrion, one thing is hating Tyrion and wanting him dead, but we've seen in this book that she believes that Tyrion is going to, like, reach from any tower. Like, she burns the bloody tower because she still thinks in some crazy way that he's hiding somewhere in the tower and that it will kill him, and then that he will appear from the shadows and strangle her or something.
Sorry, I missed everything because my internet died again.
I like that. I like that part of. I like prophecies. I've always liked that idea of, is it really a prophecy if someone hears it? Will it come true if someone hears it? We also see it with Daenerys, her obsessing over the bloody prophecy that they've done to her. Is it actually good that she heard it, or would she be better off without hearing it?
And I think it plays well in Daenerys' chapter, just like it does with Stannis and so forth. I feel like it's excessive in its grounds that have already been explored when we do it in Cersei's chapter, and I don't think it adds anything new to her character. And in fact, I just want to see what kind of person is the kind of person who feels those things without a prophecy. And there are people like that, and I think for me, like personally, that's something that would be interesting to explore.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There was a question from the chat.
I have a question first for y'all. So when she started walking up, she was talking about the dress and how dresses are fitting her. So, y'all think that perhaps that she might be pregnant, or is it just she's been drinking too much wine? Bread.
Yeah, I think she's just fat.
I think that she's kind of losing, she's always felt so much pride in her physical aspect and the fact that she was so beautiful and stuff, but she's just, the more power she's been gaining, the more she's kind of been drinking, the more she's losing, I think it's a sign of her decay, not only mentally, but physically. She's kind of losing herself. And just, I think it's kind of like shows when she does the walk of shame that she looks at herself and she does not look as beautiful and as handsome as she's always looked. I don't think she's pregnant. I think it's just a way of showing that, this beautiful queen that, used to be a sociopath, but, used to be this perfect ice queen is no longer so perfect, and she's just kind of losing it in like every possible way someone can lose it.
Manara just brought this up in the chat, and like it's all the things you said, and she's just becoming more like Robert.
Yeah, the comparison between Cersei and Robert, I think. Where was I discussing that? Anyway, yeah, it's fascinating. Like Cersei thinks she's like Tywin when she's actually very much like Robert. So yeah, there was a quick question. Does anyone from Lizard King 1278? Does anyone think Maggie is the old lady from the hill with Arya, which I assume
Ghost of High Heart?
Oh, we know that.
And I would say no. That we have sort of a background for Maggie, knowing that she's linked to Sybil Spicer, and that she's from the East, and I think the Ghost of High Heart is, if she's anything, she's Westerosi. She is like Maggie the Frog is a Sosi, and the Ghost of High Heart is the one who was the Wood Witch who was with Ginny of Oldstone. How many years ago? Because I'm really bad with timelines.
That would be like during Aegon 5 rule.
Yeah, I know that. But can you give me like 50 years ago?
I think it's probably like about 90 years ago.
Yeah,
9 years ago.
Maybe about 80, because I think Duncan Egg was like what was that? That was 100 years ago. So maybe like plus 20 would bring you to his rule.
I mean, yeah, but also with the whole Ghost of High Heart. Remember, that was what she came around during the time of his son, when his son got married, and also remember Aegon didn't become king until kind of later on in life. He didn't become he became king.
Late 20s.
He became king. Yeah, he became king kind of young, but I think the whole thing with Ghost of High Heart didn't happen until probably years later.
Yeah. Well, he was more just to say that. Yeah, she couldn't.
70s.
It's from too far away ago that she couldn't have been a Sosi, then become the friend of Lady of Oldstone, have all of that influence in the court, then move to Lannisport and have another influence in Lannisport. Like that seems a little convoluted. So, and one seems to be really very much about the old god. So that's why I think they're two. Yep.
The Ghost of High Heart is a dwarf, and I feel like that's something Cersei would have definitely mentioned about Maggie the Frog had Maggie the Frog been a dwarf, and we would have also then seen her think about Maggy the dwarf in the context of Tyrion, aside from just the Valonqar prophecy, but maybe thinking that she hates all dwarves or something. But
couldn't agree more there.
Yeah, and then also the red eyes. I don't think Cersei would leave out the point about her having the red eyes.
That's true.
We've actually got another question. This was an older one, I believe, and it's does Tana actually have her son, or is she making it up to bond with Cersei? And I forgot who actually wrote that one.
Iron Throne, I think he wrote it a bunch of times, which is an excellent question. And there I'm like, maybe there are clues in the books I totally missed. I don't know. Oh my god, shocking lack of knowledge. So that's
we don't have
the
any
answer I
evidence
can give.
either way to say. Other than that, Tana Meriwether sounds fishy, so it's possible she could be lying, but we don't really know.
But her husband was around though too. Yeah, you got to remember her husband was around. He wasn't there in this particular time because he got sent somewhere. But I don't think that that's something that you make up to bond with Cersei necessarily, because with Cersei's reputation and not really having other kids around, it's like, well, what possible advantage could that bring to Tywin and Meriwether to say, oh, I've got a son, and he's far away. So I don't think that necessarily. I don't think that necessarily gives her any kind of advantage over Cersei.
And a lot of risk. One wrong comment for anyone and stuff, and that comes out. And I wouldn't like Cersei's reaction to being liked that way, and to be, because one thing is like subtle manipulation, but something like that, she would catch on that she was being manipulated on, and Cersei's a crazy bitch. I wouldn't want that risk, especially when it doesn't give me anything great.
Oh, she would get a son. She would find a fucking commoner somewhere and be like, "You're my son now."
No, but what if someone mentions something, you're like, what, you don't have any son? Or just any comment of gossip, it comes out and off with her head.
You're my son now. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. One more question from Iron Throne. Thank you for trolling us. A challenge for the old panel. Each panel member sees something nice about Cersei. So let me start. I think she has a really great sense of style. She's really knowledgeable in the color theory. Like, she knows that, because she's so pale, that black draws her out, and that she looks much better when she wears like a warmer color that complement her skin tone and her blonde hair. So a great fashion style, Cersei.
She was right when she called Ned a stupid loyal fool. So,
hey, stay away from Ned.
They asked a question. I got to answer.
Okay, let's see. She swallows.
Don Willie. We got females on this panel.
What? You think we don't know about? Never mind.
That's the only nice thing I can say about her.
I did not even hear what you said.
You don't.
No, I think you need to repeat it.
Nah, watch it during the playback.
LT.
Oh, I know what to say.
Oh.
She killed Robert.
That's horrible. You're horrible. You're a really horrible person, Tinker.
She didn't really kill Robert. She planned to, but she got killed before. She had a chance.
She got him killed.
She got him killed.
I don't know. I'm not so certain about that. I think. Okay.
That wasn't that hard to do.
She got him drunk. He was never drunk before. It was just her getting him drunk that one time.
She kind of arranged the situation that caused his death.
Well, no, I think it's more like, but she also attributed herself, I think she had planned to kill her that way 10,000 times before and it failed, but all she remembers is that one time when she was so good at planning something.
Well, it doesn't matter. The end result, Robert is dead.
Yes. LT, do you have something nice to say about our Queen Regent? No more LT.
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. What did you guys ask me? I did step away. I apologize.
Oh, sorry. No, don't worry. Don't worry. It was a group question. You have to say something nice about Cersei.
Oh, I can't lie. Like when I see the pictures of her, like, and don't get me wrong, Lena Headey's a beautiful woman, but like the way I imagine her looking, they talk about she's the most beautiful woman in the Seven Kingdoms. So she's a beautiful person. I mean, not person, but as far as looks, like I just imagine her being very beautiful and hard to resist. You know.
I knew LT was gonna have that answer. Let's go.
Yeah. Then we have a question from AU. That's a pretty controversial.
Have answered. Ileana has not answered.
She's really good at drinking.
Oh, there you go.
She knows how to hold her liquor.
Does she?
Well, she doesn't throw it up,
Oh.
and she knows like how to pace herself, I guess.
Ileana, I wanted to back you up like that. If I had one good thing to say about her, it would be like she drinks a lot and still somehow maintains composure to a certain extent.
Battle the Blackwater, anyone. Battle the Blackwater. I'm not listening.
She wasn't drinking like she learned how to drink. She wasn't drinking as much then.
And that was like an extreme situation. An army was coming for her. That extenuating circumstances.
And no one had to hold back her hair. You know, she might have like still been a little off, but no one had to hold back her hair. That's what I gotta say about that.
So she doesn't need her hair held back. At least in this scenario.
So yeah, one slightly controversial question from Pack Mule.
I think Don really already answered this question though.
Oh, why is Cersei such a sexual deviant? Yeah, I know. I mean, like, she's not a deviant. Like, I'm pretty... AU, I love you, but I'm pretty shocked by your question, so you would need to clarify.
Wait, hold on.
It's in reaction to Don Millie's thing.
Hold on. Wait, hold on. She's not a deviant?
No, what do you call deviant? First, that's
deviant.
so normative. Like, who used the word deviant?
She might even be sleeping with Moon Boy.
Brother is not deviant behavior.
So what's wrong with sleeping with Moon Boy?
She's even sleeping with Moon Boy. Yeah, thank you,
I didn't say Moon Boy. I said her brother.
Oh, well, that's deviant. Yes.
But again, like, okay, well, there's a political problem. So we can say, like, you know, we can definitely address the political problem of...
And there's no way you're getting past that one. I'm sorry. There's no way you're justifying her sleeping with her brother.
What? They don't need to justify. I read a book by when I was really young, a book by Donna Tartt, The Secret History, and I think there's also a story of twins sleeping together, and I don't know, I thought that was common, like twins, they sleep together.
Oh, what?
Because of fiction.
Yo, wow.
I was totally cool with that. Like I read that book when I was maybe 15, and I had I wasn't shocked by it. You know, I am shocked by the fact that Cersei would endanger the realm and the stability of the realm for. I don't even know. I was gonna say her pussy, but I don't even think the more I reread her chapters, the more I think she's frigid. So I don't even know if she has sex, you know, for enjoyment or just like to control people.
She uses it to control. Sex, at least I believe, is that she uses sex as a way to control. Even Jaime, she used to have sex with Jaime mostly as a way to control him and a way to kind of like own him, so that he would belong only to her and do only to her. And that way, when she had the kids that were Jaime's, then she could see them as only her kids. It was a kind of like a way to get back at Robert and to get complete ownership over the kids that would eventually inherit the throne. So they would, like, the throne would be hers. It's a way, you know. She, you know, as Don Woolley said, you know, sometimes the show has good moments, and there's a moment in the show when she tells Sansa, you know, your greatest weapon is between your legs. She thinks that is the only weapon, like, women have and that she can use.
She uses it. I mean, let's just not say she doesn't. It's no like one. It's not one or the other all the time. Sometimes she uses it from control. Sometimes she uses it for pleasure, like when Lancel or Moonboy. Those are. I mean, she can control them anytime she wants.
Okay, but then think about it too, right? when she gets into her sexual tryst with Taina Meriwether, it's all about it's all about control, and it's all about using sex almost as a form of weaponry.
Because we're in her head, but she gets Tina's consent, Tina consents. So according to American dating rules, that's so cool. It's because we're inside her head. And come on, who's never had horrible thoughts inside their heads during sex?
Everybody in the history of humanity's had horrible thoughts.
And also, why do we say it's so horrible that Cersei sleeps with her twin, but no one gives that much shit to Jaime? It's like Jaime's blamed for pushing.
No, I think Jaime's fucked up too.
Yeah, Jaime
people blame Jaime for pushing Bran out of the window a lot more than for sleeping with Cersei.
I mean, well, listen, you know what it is? Because it's kind of like that part about those two sleeping together is just a given. It's just how much other shit can you add onto the fuckery that is those two sleeping together?
Literally fuckery.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna have to take back some of that because I forgot that she was the only one that she cheated on Robert with was Jaime, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well then that's her only deviant there.
See if she would have married.
I mean, to me, if it's between two consenting adults, I wouldn't call that deviant. So.
If she would have just married Rhaegar, they would have had little lion cubs, and everything would have been happy, and they taken in the kingdom.
Dragons. They would have been dragons. So they would have been Rhaegars because they would have actually been Rhaegars.
Yeah.
Well, do we know that? Do you know that? Because she's got this fantasy about Rhaegar, but mainly it's because she thinks that things would have been different than with Robert, and she mentions it in this. I think it's in this chapter that there was a moment when she was happy with Robert when they came out of the Sept and everyone was looking at her and cheering her and happiness. And it wasn't until her dream came crashing down, and realized that was not going to be the perfect little life that she wanted. That Robert, things started to turn out badly, and Rhaegar wouldn't have loved her either, wouldn't have been, worshipped her, and I think she kind of compares it to what Jaime feels for her and will do for her, and no one else will do that except Jaime. And the moment that she realized that Rhaegar was not going to be her fantasy life, and her pride was hurt, then they may have been all Lannister. All her children might have been Lannisters all over again.
No, she had a thing for Rhaegar. She was hardcore on him. Like, am I gonna marry him? I want to have him.
But the idea, the fantasy of him, and when the fantasy doesn't, the reality comes crashing in. The fantasy dissolves, and then.
What bad reality would she have gotten from Rhaegar? She should have been like, oh, he's so morose and he's always saying like, I don't get how the fantasy would have been crushed with Rhaegar.
He was a prophecy obsessed lunatic, and he would have left her publicly for another woman.
Well, yeah, I think he would have left her just because she was a horrible person, and he knew that. He's like, I'm a terrible person.
But even if that wouldn't have happened, Cersei, we've seen it in the chapter, she wants to be worshipped, she wants to be adored, she wants to be loved and obsessed for the same way Jaime does for her. And Rhaegar wouldn't have cared two shits about her. He was always going to Dragonstone and playing his songs and going in the common folk and singing for them. He wouldn't have giving Cersei what she craves, what she desired.
No, but Tinker, I think Rhaegar would have treated her really good,
and she would have been happy with Rhaegar. I think so personally. But the thing is, the question I always have is, okay, if Cersei had a good man that treated her right, like we know Robert treated her bad, would she have been a lot nicer person, a better person? Who knows, right?
Oh, she was a bitch when she was.
No. Yeah, she killed her best friend.
Yeah.
That's like what I think is interesting about Cersei. She's a terrible person, but she's not. You can be a terrible person and have still been a victim of something, and it doesn't justify you being a terrible person. But she still sucks as a person.
Her one redeeming quality, like Tyrion said, is she loves her children.
As extensions of herself, but
the same way she loves Jaime, and
yeah.
We really believe that she would have let Jaime go just because she was with Rhaegar, and not only she wouldn't have let Jaime go, even if Rhaegar treated her well. What she wanted was to be adored and worshipped like Jaime does to her. We've seen it all the time. She wants to be worshipped. She wants to be larger than life, and that's what she thought that she would get from Rhaegar. They would be the perfect couple. That was not going to happen, ever.
Wish you a happy birthday.
And she might have lasted more time than with Robert, but eventually that would have turned her bitter.
Well,
today is Anne's day. It's her birthday, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Because we don't have any more questions from the chat, I think we're going to wrap this up if it's okay with everyone. Thank you, LT, again. And thank you to everyone who wished me a happy birthday in the chat. I'm very sorry. I was badly trying to moderate that chapter reread, so I wasn't really focused on the chat. But thank you, everyone. And I don't have any more announcements, so let's us all sign out. Ileana?
Goodbye. What do I do when I sign out? How does this work?
You can say anything you want.
Plug yourself.
Goodbye.
Shameless plug time. That's what that is.
Shameless plug time. Listen to Maester Monthly at Maester Monthly. Go on Reddit. Say cool things.
Is it on iTunes?
It is on iTunes and on Google Play and
on YouTube.
The
link is in the description box. I will also add two links. I will try. Ileana, you have to make me think about, like you were talking about, the article Jeff wrote about the faith. I want to add that to the description box, and also a lot of the info that I got from, the queenly behavior and Viseria's style of ruling was also from another article from Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire that will be linked in the description box. And go read their blog because it's amazing.
And what's your Twitter, Eliana?
I went through like a math rock phase, so it's like arithmetric. It's ARHYTHMETRIC. It's like from high school or college. Just let me have this.
Are we all signed out?
And Tinker?
Well, everyone, goodbye. Thank you, everyone who has watched us live and who's going to watch us later on. Happy birthday, sweet. Although there's not a lot left of your birthday, but because we're in Europe, but enjoy what you have left, and bye-bye, everyone.
Oh, she's got a lot of time left here in the States. It is well in full swing, Anne's birthday over here in the States. Willie.
I mean, tomorrow, I will celebrate more tomorrow because I won't have anything to do.
All right. Listen, Anne, happy birthday again. Thank you for having me. Thank everyone else for being here. Thank you, everybody in the chat. I know I've kind of slowed down on video production. I got a couple of scripts that I'm writing for some more theories. And, don't steal my shit. But, I will, be putting out a new theory video on Monday. And also, I'm going to be doing some more reviews on my other channel, Don Entertainment, doing one of Jerry's most hated movie of the year, Alien Covenant. Fuck you, Jerry. I like
Fuck that movie.
and you're doing a discussion with LT about that movie, and there'll be a lot of fuck you Jerry's in that one too. Yeah, you already know the deal. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, come back for more. That has been my time on here, and it's Don Willie St. Valor the Harris.
And
That
the ladies' man, Sir LT Giles himself. LT, are you there, buddy?
Yes, I'm here. Before I sign off, I want to say one of the coolest things when Margaery told Cersei, "You hateful bitch." That was fucking awesome. That was very awesome. Okay, but yeah, always awesome to be on the panel with the Hypes Watch, and thanks for joining us, Eliana, and once again, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
And the steamboat himself, Mr. Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry the Targaryen Steamboat. And yeah, thanks for joining for this month's reread. We'll be doing one again next month, and we might even also try and do a couple of other videos, but we'll see. It's all good, man.
Maybe Better Call Saul in the future, right?
Well, way to just totally give away my little hint there, LT.
Anne, any final words you want to say?
To all of us asking, to all of you asking us when's the next one. Next month, as always, we don't have the date yet, and I don't know. It's Tinker and Jerry's birthday next month, so I don't know if they want to do something special for that or something else. And yes, we're still trying to resuscitate a Clash of Queens. Baby, we're just waiting for you, but that will happen again one day. I'm just not making any more promises. So thank you everyone for being here. It was a pleasure, and until next time, bye bye.